Hogwarts, The Return of Turmoil. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 51 Scorpius Malfoy. After the Quidditch training, Maureen walked towards the castle. Because it was Saturday, there were no classes, and students were coming and going along the way. He was going to find Hugo to discuss the next thing. But just as he walked into the castle hall, he found that some students were pointing and talking in front of him, and a few people were making a loud noise. Maureen frowned slightly, and he saw Carlo in the crowd. "You bump into me, and you want to pass by so easily." Carlo's voice was long and annoying. The person who was blocked by Carlo was Toby. Toby's face turned red and was blocked by Carlo and another Slytherin boy. "I have apologized, what else do you want?" Toby said with a lack of confidence. Carlo touched his chin and said contemptuously, "If I accept the apology of a mudblood, it will dirty me. Why don't you tell everyone that you are a mudblood, then I won't pursue it, how about it?" He didn't need to say that. Maureen squeezed through the crowd, walked to Toby, and looked at Carlo angrily. Carlo narrowed his eyes and twitched his lips slightly. "You again. I thought you would learn a lesson after being punished. Where do you get the confidence to think you are superior? Huh? Carlo." Maureen was very disgusted with Carlo. He always mocked some Muggle-born students. He couldn't stand these things the most. Carlo drew out his wand and pointed at Maureen. "Since you want to meddle in other people's business so much, it's just right for us to settle new and old grudges together. McGinn, help me teach this guy a lesson." The boy next to Carlo also drew out his wand and said with contempt, "Carlo, you can't even beat a freshman. Your parents will be ashamed." McGinn is a sophomore student. When he drew out his wand, his momentum was much stronger than Carlo's. Maureen was not a person who is afraid of trouble. The more you tolerate some people, the more they will push their feet. At most, they will fight. It's no big deal. But when Maureen reached into his pocket, his heart skipped a beat and he found that he didn't bring his wand. He attended Quidditch training in the afternoon. To be on the safe side, he left his wand in the dormitory. Now he was unarmed. "What? You're going out without your wand?" "I just have a spell that I'm worried about not finding someone to practice with." The tip of Carlo's wand was already glowing purple. When Maureen was thinking about how to respond, a voice suddenly sounded behind him, "Disarm you." A red light shot from behind Maureen, passed over his shoulder, and hit Carlo. The wand in Carlo's hand tilted and flew out, landing in the hands of a pale-faced boy. The boy had golden hair, a straight nose, and regular features. He was 2 or 3 years older than Maureen. "Carlo, you cast magic on someone without a wand. This is not something to be proud of." The boy who used the disarming spell came over and was very disdainful of Carlo's behavior. Carlo stared at the blond boy and said, "Scorpius, what do you mean?" The boy called Scorpius replied, "How many times have I told you not to say those 3 insulting words? You never learn your lesson. You have made Slytherin lose face. Scorpius, you are from Slytherin. You don't help me, but you take my wand. You still have the nerve to call yourself a student of Slytherin." Maureen looked at Scorpius in surprise. He didn't expect that the one who helped him would be a student of Slytherin. Scorpius said seriously, "Slytherin is excluded by the other 3 colleges because of stupid people like you. What era is it now? You still talk about pure-blood wizards all the time. Aren't the lessons you have learned in the past enough? How could you say such a thing? When did the Malfoy family become so cowardly? Oh, I forgot. You Malfoy family are fence-sitters. You don't have your own position." Carlo mocked. Scorpius's eyes narrowed, and the wand in his hand emitted an orange light, hitting Carlo's mouth. Carlo's mouth was immediately glued together by the spell and could not open. "Carlo, I warn you, we are not fence-sitters. We are just doing the right thing. If you dare to gossip again, I will make you pay." Scorpius turned his eyes to McGinn, who was beside Carlo, and continued, "McGinn, do you want to help Carlo too?" McGinn's face was uncertain for a while, and then he put away the wand silently. Scorpius threw the wand back to Carlo and said, "Get out of my sight, don't embarrass me." Carlo took the wand, glared at Scorpius angrily, and seemed to want to say something, but his mouth was glued together by the spell, and he couldn't speak. He could only turn his head away unwillingly. Scorpius saw Carlo leave, then walked to Toby and Maureen, and said solemnly, "Sorry, Not all Slytherin students look down on people of Muggle origin. Please don't look at us Slytherins with strange eyes. By the way, my name is Scorpius Malfoy. Maureen Walker. Maureen looked at the boy who was older than him and said politely, I recognize you, the big shot on the Daily Prophet. Scorpius looked at Maureen's eyes with different pupil colors with interest. Maureen was about to respond when Albus came over from behind and said with a smile, Hey, Scorpius, are you promoting the good of Slytherin to others again? I just don't want people to misunderstand Slytherin. Many Slytherin students are not born to look down on others, Albus. Scorpius obviously knew Albus and was not angry about Albus's ridicule. You don't have to explain to me. I'm tired of hearing it. Albus patted Scorpius' shoulder indifferently, and then said to Maureen, This guy has been trying to change the impression of other colleges on Slytherin. Don't compare him with a fool like Caro. This guy is one of us. The latest novels are first published on the 69th book bar. Maureen still had a good impression of Scorpius. He smiled politely. Thank you for your help just now. You're welcome. Our Slytherin students are not born to be arrogant. I hope you know this. I have something else to do, Albus. I'll leave first. Scorpius smiled and then left the hall. This guy looks good. Is he really from the Malfoy family? Maureen was born a wizard, so he had naturally heard rumors about the Malfoy family. It is said that the Malfoy family used to be a loyal supporter of Voldemort and had a terrible reputation in the wizarding world. Albus nodded. He is from the Malfoy family, but unlike his grandfather Lucius Malfoy, Scorpius has a very positive outlook on life. You also know that more than 20 years ago, when Hogwarts fought the Death Eaters, except for the Dean, Professor Slughorn, no other Slytherin student participated in the battle, and students from the other 3 colleges suffered heavy casualties. So since that time, people from other colleges have excluded Slytherin. Albus paused and continued, Scorpius felt it necessary to prove to everyone that Slytherin people are not born dark wizards, so since he entered school, he often taught a lesson to people like Carol who looked down on Muggle-borns, and worked hard to improve the image of Slytherin in the eyes of other colleges. Don't take it to heart, people like Carol are only a minority after all, and most Slytherins are the same as Scorpius. There are dark wizards in every college. Think about it, Wormtail is from Gryffindor. Maureen had heard Hugo mention Wormtail, the man who betrayed his friend and broke his promise. When Voldemort was resurrected, he played an extremely crucial role. Such a person was a member of Gryffindor when he was in school. How did you know Scorpius? Maureen asked. His father and my father are friends. Mr. Draco saved my father's life, and later my father also saved his life. After a while, even if we put aside our prejudices, the two became friends. Scorpius and I knew each other before we went to school. He is the same age as me. Albus said. Maureen nodded slightly. Not everyone is born a dark wizard, and people of Muggle origin are not born inferior. If you can't choose your own origin, at least you can choose your own life. This truth is easy to understand. Then Scorpius is a good person. Maureen said. Yes, but he is not as handsome as me. James came over from behind and said leisurely. Maureen laughed. Thanks to everyone for their support. Thanks to the big brother Umeng for the reward and the inclusion in the book list. Thanks to Meng Liu Chunj and Suan Liu Nai for the reward, and also thanks to everyone for the recommendation votes. The new book needs support. If there are people reading it, I will continue to write. The new book will have 2 chapters a day, and it will be changed to 3 chapters after it is put on the shelves. Because I like the magical world of Harry Potter, I am a HP fan. I have read the 7 original novels at least 30 times, and watched the movies 7 or 8 times. I have never wanted Harry Potter to end, so I plan to write a sequel myself. Please leave a message to correct any poorly written parts. Thank you everyone. Chapter 52, Mark of the Death Eaters. Carlo's matter was of no importance to Maureen. What Maureen wanted to confirm most was whether Sir Cadogan was still alive. If Sir Cadogan escaped, maybe he could tell Maureen the truth. Jamie is there. Should we go ask him? Hugo said, pointing to a thin boy in the corner when Maureen returned to the common room. Yes. Maureen looked at Jamie who was reading a book. After the people around him left, he and Hugo walked over and sat next to Jamie. He said, "Can I ask you something, Jamie?" Jamie looked up and looked at Maureen in confusion, as if he was a little surprised. He knew Maureen. In fact, there were very few people in the class who didn't know Maureen. Maureen's mastery of magic was the best among all of them. Of course, apart from Muggle research and astronomy, Jamie was not familiar with Maureen and didn't understand why he suddenly looked for him. Jamie closed the book and said, "What's the matter? It's about the last time you got lost. Have you remembered anything recently?" Hugo couldn't wait to ask. Jamie shook his head. "I don't remember where I went. I have no impression at all. Rayleigh said that I might have been hit by someone's amnesia spell. Maybe some senior students secretly practiced the amnesia spell on me. This is not caused by the amnesia spell. Hugo had the same experience as you yesterday. You didn't come to class yesterday." Maureen said. "Oh, yes, you missed a whole day of class yesterday. I think you need to explain to Professor Kane. Don't you remember where you went?" Jamie asked. Hugo shook his head, and then said seriously, "Do you feel uncomfortable in any way, such as some inexplicable marks on your back?" Jamie's face suddenly turned pale when he said this, and he shook his head in panic. No, why are you asking this?" Maureen and Hugo looked at each other. Jamie's panic had already made them know that Jamie might have found out that the mark was the mark of the dark wizard Grindelwald, so he was unwilling to say it. Hugo sat down and comforted him. "Jamie, don't worry. I have the same mark on my back as you." Jamie opened his eyes wide, as if he had found comfort, and exclaimed, "Do you also have the mark of a Death Eater on your back?" "What? Death Eater?" Maureen and Hugo were surprised. Jamie thought he had not explained it clearly, and said, "It is the mark of Voldemort, a black skull with a snake spitting out of its mouth. I felt a little cold on my back that day, so I looked in the mirror and found that it was Voldemort's mark, which scared me. But I am not a Death Eater. Are you worried about this, so you didn't tell everyone about it?" Maureen asked. Jamie nodded. He was inexplicably branded with the mark of a Death Eater. He was worried that if he told it, he would be considered to have a relationship with Voldemort more than 20 years ago, so he didn't dare to say it. "Do you still have that mark now?" Maureen asked. Jamie gritted his teeth, looked around, and made sure no one noticed him before saying, "It's still there, and it's always cold. It's fine at other times, but once you touch it, it will give off a chill. Is yours the same, Hugo?" Hugo hesitated for a while and wanted to say that his mark had disappeared, but Maureen winked at him and said, "For Hugo, his is still there. Can you show it to us?" In order to avoid Jamie's misunderstanding, Maureen decided not to tell him that Hugo's mark had disappeared and dispel his concerns. "Okay, then you follow me," Jamie said in a low voice. It was already night, and there were people in the dormitory, so they could only go to the bathroom and lock the door when no one was in the bathroom. "You have to understand that I have nothing to do with Voldemort, and no one in my family is a Death Eater. My 7th aunt's second uncle's 6th son was killed by a Death Eater. We hate Voldemort." Jamie couldn't wait to make clear his relationship with the Death Eaters and make his position clear. "Don't worry, you are definitely not a Death Eater. My dad said that Death Eaters will not look for minors as apprentices, that will only drag them down." Hugo said. "That's good. I haven't slept well these days because of this matter. I dare not tell my parents or the professor." Jamie lifted his back, but there was no Death Eater mark on his back. Hugo stretched out his finger and pressed it on Jamie's back right in front of his heart. Then a cool air came out of Jamie's back, and a black skull came out. There was an evil snake in the mouth of the skull swallowing and spitting out its tongue. "It's really the mark of the Death Eater." Maureen stared at the mark that was only the size of 2 fingers, and exchanged a surprised look with Hugo. Even if the mark on Hugo's back was used by Grindelwald, it was not as frightening as the mark of the Death Eater, because Voldemort was a dark wizard who was said to be more powerful and terrifying than Grindelwald, and he slaughtered countless people. The shadow brought by the black skull mark still remains in the minds of the older generation of wizards. The latest novels are first published on 69 Shuba. "Brother, try it, maybe it will work." Hugo gestured to Maureen. "Okay." Maureen took a deep breath, and carefully stretched out his finger to touch the Death Eater mark on Jamie's back. Then, just like last time, a chill flowed from his fingertips along Maureen's arm into his mind. Maureen only felt countless strange phantoms passing by his eyes again, as if many figures were passing by him quickly, and some strange voices flashed by, but they were not very clear. When Maureen reacted, he was already standing in the corridor on the 7th floor. This time it's Jamie's memory. It's a really weird feeling. Maureen couldn't control Jamie's body. He seemed to be looking at what had happened through Jamie's eyes. Jamie walked past the paintings on the walls of the corridor, turned around the empty armor that often creaked, came to the classroom, and then pushed open the door of the classroom. A mist came towards him, and he couldn't see what was in front of him, but he could vaguely feel that he was in a forest, with the wind blowing through the leaves and rustling, and some strange whispers coming one after another. The scene that Maureen saw was similar to the scene he saw in Hugo's memory. He tried hard to dispel the mist and see more scenes, but he couldn't control Jamie's body. This was just a memory, and he couldn't change anything. The confusion around him began to spin, as if it was gradually breaking apart. A drowsy feeling came from Maureen's mind, and the same scene happened again. Just when Maureen's consciousness began to return to his body, he suddenly felt that the mist around him seemed a little bit wrong. When he wanted to see clearly, the scene in front of him had returned to normal and was replaced by Jamie's back. "How is it? What do you see? Is it different from my memory?" Hugo asked quickly. Maureen frowned, and after a moment he said slowly, "There is indeed one difference." Chapter 53 The Fat Lady Who Lost Her Love. "Where?" Hugo asked. Maureen glanced at Jamie and didn't answer immediately, but confirmed, "Has the mark on Jamie disappeared?" Hugo checked Jamie's back and nodded, "Yes, it disappeared." Just like the mark disappeared when Maureen touched Hugo's back, the same thing happened to Jamie. "Did my mark disappear?" Jamie stretched out his hand to press the mark on his back and found that the cold feeling was gone. He rushed to the mirror. No matter how he pressed, the Death Eater mark did not appear again. The mark that had troubled him for so many days was really gone. "Oh my God. How did you do it?" Jamie was very excited. He looked at Maureen in disbelief. "No big deal, Maureen's magic is superb. He can deal with 10 Aurors alone. Haven't you read the Daily Prophet?" Hugo said casually. "Don't talk nonsense. This is just a prank magic. Someone is playing a joke on you on purpose. Jamie, you don't need to worry too much. Next time if you encounter something similar, remember to tell me, but don't tell anyone else." Maureen didn't tell Jamie the truth. Many things were difficult to explain. "So that's how it is. I understand." Jamie felt relieved. He had been feeling very uncomfortable these days because of the Death Eater's mark. He was afraid of being discovered by others. After Jamie left, Maureen and Hugo returned to their dormitory. Toby and Sweet were not there. Hugo quickly asked, "How is it? You didn't explain it to me clearly just now. By the way, your eyes are glowing again. It's a really weird feeling." Maureen thought for a moment and replied, "I'm not sure, but I always feel that the fog I saw is in the Forbidden Forest." "Forbidden Forest? Why do you think it's in the Forbidden Forest?" Hugo asked puzzledly. Maureen glanced at Sweet's bed and said, "Because in Jamie's memory, I saw a tentacle vaguely in the mist." "You mean the tentacle monster we encountered when we were following Sweet that day?" Hugo said in surprise. "I can't be sure, because it was just a tentacle, or a vine. My memory is not clear enough and I can't recognize it completely." Maureen shook his head. "But we are on the 7th floor, right? How could we run to the Forbidden Forest? This is really incredible." Hugo was puzzled. "This is also what I am confused about. There must be some strange things in that classroom that we have overlooked. Maybe Circa Duggan knows something." Maureen took out a fragment of the portrait from his school bag. "It's a pity that the knight who I have never met has met with an accident. I hope he can go to heaven to declare war on everyone." Hugo spread his hands. Maureen still had a glimmer of hope for Circa Duggan. He still believed that Circa Duggan might have other portraits, so he had to find out the origin of Circa Duggan. Hogwarts could not have hung his portrait for no reason. The next day, he looked up the book Hogwarts, A History of the School. If you want to know the past of Hogwarts Castle, you can definitely read this book. This book records all kinds of magic and secrets about the castle, as well as how the 4 founders got together and how they parted ways, the origin of the statues in the castle, and the history of some portraits. However, this book rarely introduces the history of portraits. It basically only introduces some famous painters in the wizarding world, who used their magic brushes to record various inspirations, and even the names of the painters are not mentioned. However, the book emphasizes that not all characters in the portraits can speak, and many portraits do not like to talk to people. This varies from painting to painting. Circa Duggan. Who created Circa Duggan? Maureen searched for a long time but did not see the introduction of Circa Duggan. My dad said that Circa Duggan used to be the doorman of the Gryffindor common room. That was a disaster. He often changed the passwords, which made the Gryffindor students miserable. Hugo said casually. He specifically asked an owl to go back and ask about Circleduggan's identity last night, but Hugo's father Ron didn't know much. Maureen closed the book and stood up. Oh, by the way, how could I forget this? If you want to know a person's identity, you should ask his kind. Same kind? Do you mean the pony? It can't talk. Hugo didn't understand what Maureen was talking about. I mean the fat lady. The fat lady is a huge portrait on the door of the Gryffindor common room. Who is specifically responsible for guarding the Gryffindor common room? She has been guarding the door for Gryffindor for many years. The fat lady has existed since Maureen's grandfather. Maureen opened the door of the common room, walked out with Hugo, and then closed the door again. Looking at the fat lady who was painting her nails, she said, "Hey, fat lady, how are you?" Password. The fat lady said without raising her head. She was painting her nails purple with grape juice from the wall frame next door. "Oh, I'm not going in. I want to ask you some questions," Maureen said. "The latest novels are published on the 6th and 9th books bar. If you want to ask why the password for this month is Men Are Heartless, I won't answer you." The fat lady looked at Maureen arrogantly and snorted heavily. This problem really bothered many Gryffindor boys. The fat lady changed the password from the day before yesterday. Anyone who wants to enter the common room must say this sentence, otherwise he will not be allowed in. Although many boys protested seriously, the fat lady ignored them and did not explain the reason. However, the girls in Gryffindor were very supportive of this password. Many boys were unwilling to say this password and could only wait for the girls to come and open the door. According to most students' guess, the fat lady fell in love with a handsome man in a painting in the castle, but was rejected when she confessed her love. So she took her anger out on all the boys in Gryffindor. This can be seen from the details such as the fat lady recently starting to draw long eyelashes, apply ugly pink lipstick, and wear an orange suspender skirt that is seriously inconsistent with her age. Everyone is saying that the fat lady wants to change her image to make the unknown handsome man change his mind. Oh, that's not the question. I want to ask about you. Who painted you so beautifully? Maureen knew that the fat lady had a problem with boys, and in order to ask something, she had to say something against her will. After saying this, he despised himself fiercely. When the fat lady heard what Maureen said, she put down the grape juice in her hand, looked at Maureen seriously, and her arrogant expression relaxed a little. "You are very good at talking. You are really a smart child. Well, you are also very handsome, much better than some people." As she said that, the fat lady blinked her shining eyes at Maureen, her long eyelashes fluttering, and the false eyelashes seemed to be plucked from the hair of an animal in a painting. When she blinked, they fell off, and the fat lady quickly put them back on. "I think she likes you," Hugo said to Maureen in a low voice with a snicker. "It's better not." Maureen ignored Hugo and continued, "Fat lady, then which painter created you?" Chapter 54 The Creator of the Fat Lady. The fat lady pulled a chair from the portrait next door and sat down, with an infatuated look on her face. It was a long time ago. A handsome wandering painter saw a beautiful woman washing clothes by the river. Her plump and attractive figure touched him. He immediately waved his magic wand, conjured up a paintbrush, and painted the beautiful woman, and then I became her. The painter really had a good eye for talent. He is my favorite person. The fat lady turned around on the spot, lifted her skirt slightly, and a blush appeared on her face. "You also have the same vision as him, don't you?" Hugo's expression became very strange. He tried hard to restrain himself from laughing. Maureen pushed Hugo with his elbow to make him hold back his laughter. "Yes, fat lady, the painter really has a good eye. I wonder what the name of the person with such superb painting skills is? Are there any other widely circulated paintings?" Maureen also tried his best to make his tone very respectful. The fat lady's eyes became very obsessed, as if she remembered the past that she missed, and she said shyly, "That handsome painter, wearing a magical wizard hat, his name is known to everyone in the wizarding world, and everyone admires that great painter. Yes, you have also heard of him, a brave and fearless adventurer, a genius adventurer and painter who combines all the advantages of men in the world, Godric Gryffindor." "What? Gryffindor?" The expressions on Maureen and Hugo's faces froze instantly, and they were both shocked by the news. They had never heard of these things, let alone that Mr. Gryffindor, one of the 4 founders of Hogwarts, was actually the creator of the fat lady's portrait. But, such an important thing, it's not mentioned in the book. Maureen took a long time to come back to his senses. If the Fat Lady was a portrait created by Gryffindor, then the Fat Lady's painting would be a priceless treasure in the wizarding world. It can almost be regarded as a treasure preserved in the Wizard History Museum. That's because I am his most satisfied work, and he doesn't want too many people to know. If it weren't for this, I wouldn't have agreed to guard Gryffindor Tower for him. All men in the world are heartless, but he is the only one who is excluded. The Fat Lady held her chin, and tapped her cheek lightly with her fat index finger. She seemed to miss Mr. Gryffindor very much. Maureen and Hugo looked at each other, not knowing how to respond. Most people probably don't know this news, because when people see the Fat Lady, they just say a password at most, and the Fat Lady opens the door for them to go in. Few people would ask about the Fat Lady's past. The Fat Lady is still immersed in beautiful memories, such a perfect man. Why can't I meet him? I mean, it would be nice if he could come out and walk around often. I haven't seen him many times. Maybe we can go out for a walk occasionally in the middle of the night. Walk? With whom? Hugo said in surprise. I mean the portrait of Mr. Gryffindor. The portraits of the 4 founders are in the principal's office, and they rarely leave there. The Fat Lady explained. Maureen tried to imagine the scene of 2 people in the painting walking in the painting of the castle late at night. The 2 people sat by the clear lake and watched the unicorn drinking water on the shore. This scene was really weird. Although this matter was shocking, it was not what Maureen wanted to know. He asked again, Fat Lady, you have been in the castle for so long, you must know many people in the paintings. Do you know Sir Cadogan? Where is he from? The Fat Lady put away her obsessed look, and heard the 5 words of Sir Cadogan, and said disdainfully, he. Just an unknown person painted by an unknown painter, who is restless and bragging all day long. He is a shame to our castle portrait world. But how can a portrait of a small person be hung in Hogwarts? I mean, shouldn't the paintings in Hogwarts be of people with a background? For example, you were painted by Mr. Gryffindor, and Sir Cadogan should also be painted by a famous person, right? Maureen said. Okay. You're right. The Fat Lady said reluctantly, but Sir Cadogan was not painted by a famous painter. He himself has some fame. I don't remember when, but he became famous for protecting the village of Hogsmeade. He rushed over alone and died with a wyvern. I heard that he saved a former headmaster at that time. He got a bargain for him and put his portrait in the castle. He is a native resident of Hogsmeade. Is Sir Cadogan's home in Hogsmeade? Maureen had heard of Hogsmeade. Like Diagon Alley, it is the place where the most wizards gather. Although it is not as prosperous as Diagon Alley, it is very close to Hogwarts School, so students above the 3rd grade can go there to play on weekends. There are also many interesting magic shops there. Okay, have you 2 finished asking questions? I'm going to continue painting my nails. The Fat Lady said. Then we won't bother you anymore. Can you open the door and let us in? Maureen asked. Password. The Fat Lady said in a long tone. Come on, Fat Lady, we are all having such a good time chatting, do we still need a password? Hugo frowned when he remembered the Fat Lady's password. Password. The Fat Lady emphasized again. You say it. Hugo said to Maureen. I won't say it. You say it. I don't want to say it either. Maureen and Hugo were both unwilling to say that sentence, but if they didn't say it, the Fat Lady wouldn't open the door, so they could only wait in the corridor outside. Then 2 third-year boys stopped at the door, and they were also unwilling to say the password that annoyed the boys. She is sexist, it's too much? Hugo couldn't help but say. There's nothing we can do. No one can convince her. The prefect Nelson has already talked to the professor, and maybe he will hire a psychologist to enlighten her. The latest novels are first published on the 6th grade 9-book bar. Maureen spread her hands. It was not known whether it would work to ask a psychologist for a person in a painting who had lost love, but it was worth a try. After waiting for 10 minutes, a Gryffindor girl finally climbed up the stairs. Men are heartless. The girl glanced at the group of boys at the door, and then said calmly. That's right, dear. The Fat Lady opened the door. All the boys were very angry, including Maureen, who had just said something against her will. This sentence was simply trampling on the dignity of the boys. Why didn't the girl feel any guilt when she said the password? I bet you that she must have said the password so confidently because no boy wanted it. Hugo said angrily. What did you say? The girl turned around and glared at Hugo fiercely. Hugo quickly closed his mouth, glanced elsewhere, and whistled. Maureen smiled secretly, and she and Hugo found a place in the corner, and they began to discuss Sir Cadogan's matter. If we find Sir Cadogan's home in Hogsmeade, then we may find Sir Cadogan's portrait. Do we still have to go to Hogsmeade? You know, first-year students must abide by school rules and cannot leave the school at will. Hugo looked unhappy. Really? You actually have such an idea? Maureen looked at Hugo suspiciously. I would rather find out who planned all this. Don't you want to find out who put the mark on your back? Hugo hesitated for a moment before saying, well, how can I actually say this? Uncle George opened a branch of Weasley's wagon shop in Hogsmeade. My dad is the manager there. I don't want to be caught by my dad there. No wonder Hugo was reluctant to leave there, otherwise according to his previous temperament, it would be unreasonable not to run out of school to play. Then I'll find a way to go to Hogsmeade alone to find Sir Cadogan's home. Maureen said. Thanks to Book Friends, Remix, 150,826,231,003,768, and for their rewards. New books are seedlings and need everyone's care. Every recommendation ticket and every reward makes me very happy. Even a small message in the book review area is motivation. These are like sunshine, which can make the seedlings grow into big trees with more confidence. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 55, Ways to Leave School. How are you going to leave the school? You don't have my Uncle Harry's invisibility cloak, not to mention you, even James and Albus don't have it. I'm afraid they will become even more restless after they have the invisibility cloak. Hugo said. This is indeed a problem. I don't know much about the secret passages to leave the school. James said one of them is behind Gregory, the flatterer on the 7th floor, but he seemed to say that the one was blocked by the headmaster. The last time Maureen took the Marauder's map, he saw several secret passages on the Marauder's map. He didn't pay much attention to it at the time, but now he regrets not writing them down. I remember that passage. When James and Albus sneaked out, they were caught by Headmaster McGonagall. They were both detained for a week. This happened last year. At that time, their mother sent a howler letter to the school. Liliana happened to see what the howler letter was written. Hugo thought it was very interesting. Besides that, do you know any other passages? Maureen asked. Hugo shook his head regretfully. My dad mentioned that there are 7 ways to leave the school, but my mom rushed in and told my dad not to tell me. She didn't want me to sneak out of the school. Really, when they were in school, didn't they run out every day? Hugo's mother is Hermione, a witch with very advanced magic skills, serious and not to be messed with. Although Maureen has never seen her, Hugo said that Rose, a good student, is a replica of his mother. In this way, Maureen probably has seen Ms. Hermione. James and Albus should know, right? Let's go ask him. Maureen looked around, but unfortunately, there was no trace of James and Albus in the Gryffindor common room. They must have gone to Hogsmeade Village. Today is Sunday. It would be strange if they could stay in school. Hugo said. James and Albus were not there, which meant that Maureen could not leave school on Sunday. He could only give up this idea temporarily and ask again in the evening. In the afternoon, they started to make up their homework. They had spent a whole day yesterday training Quidditch and looking for the statue of Sir Cadogan, and they didn't finish their homework. Maureen quickly finished the 9 key points of the growth charm in the charms class, and then threw his own paper to Hugo to copy. He picked up Hugo's astronomical star chart and started filling it in. I bet I will fail the astronomy exam at the end of the semester. Maureen felt guilty while copying. It's not that he didn't study astronomy well, but the star positions he saw were completely different from others. He still hasn't figured out what's going on. Don't be discouraged. At least you are top-notch in other courses. Professor Flitwick praises you highly. What you should worry about is the Muggle Studies class. Did you do the Muggle TV remote control diagram assigned by Professor Charles? Hugo asked. I did a little, but I'm not sure what the 1 to 9 on the remote control are used for. Maureen asked. Hugo thought about it and said with certainty, it's for making phone calls. I heard that every Muggle has a phone. If they want to watch a certain channel, they can call the host of the channel and ask them to tune the TV to that channel. That's really troublesome, isn't it? You have to make a phone call to change a channel. Maureen found a half-finished Muggle studies book from a pile of books and wrote down Hugo's answer. Yes, Muggles are really stupid. They are not like us who listen to the radio, tap with a wand, and say a spell. Hugo agreed. After James and Albus came back at night, Maureen immediately found them and asked them about the secret passage to leave the school. The passage to leave the school, tut-tut. I like restless children. James patted Maureen's shoulder with a sly smile. Help. I have to leave school to find someone. Maureen said seriously. James didn't ask Maureen who he was looking for. People like them who like to play pranks have a lot of secrets. The thing they hate most is that others come to pry into their secrets, so James would not ask Maureen what he was going to do. Let me think. The passage through the Whomping Willow is not feasible, the passage behind the big mirror on the 5th floor has collapsed, and the passage behind the Gregory statue has been blocked by Headmaster McGonagall. I suggest you take the passage through the house elf kitchen in the basement. James took out a bottle of butterbeer from his school bag. This is a non-alcoholic beverage brought back from Hogsmeade. He poured a glass for Maureen and Hugo. House elf passage? There is a passage to the outside in the kitchen. Maureen had never been to the kitchen in Hogwarts, but he knew that there were many house elves in Hogwarts. Otherwise, where do you think the food we eat comes from? Food is one of the 5 exceptions to Gamp's basic law of transfiguration. The food we eat cannot be conjured out of thin air. It can only be purchased by the house elves in Hogsmeade Village. James said. So that's it. I'm afraid no one knows that there is a secret passage in the kitchen. Maureen knew where the kitchen was. It was mentioned in Hogwarts, a history of the school, that the kitchen was in the basement directly below the castle hall, but he didn't know that there was a passage out of the kitchen. Not many people know about this. I discovered it by accident. Last time I went to the kitchen to steal food, I said it would be nice if I could leave school and go out to play, and then they showed me a way. Those little guys are very hospitable. Every time I go there, they stuff a pile of cakes into my hands. I feel embarrassed if I don't accept them. The latest novels are first published on the 6th 9-book bar. After James finished speaking, he warned, Maureen, you are from a wizard family. You should understand what house elves don't like, right? Don't be like Hugo's mother. What's wrong with Hugo's mother? Maureen asked, puzzled. Hugo took a sip of butterbeer and spread his hands. My mother still refuses to give up the House Elf Welfare Promotion Association. I can't help it. I am still a member of this association. But I don't know where the seal of the association is lost. James, you seem to have joined the association last time, right? Yes, it was your mother's coercion and inducement. The badge is really ugly. How did she think of making the badge into the shape of an elf wearing clothes and holding a gold galleon? I threw it at home before I came to Hogwarts. I don't want to be asked to leave by those hospitable little guys when I go to the kitchen. James pouted. Of course, Maureen knew the position of the house elves. They were proud to work for wizards and ashamed to be free. The idea of working for free was deeply rooted in the minds of house elves. If someone wanted to fight for their interests and pay them wages, they would feel insulted. It would be better for him not to get involved in such troublesome matters. But Maureen had to go to Hogsmeade to find Sir Cadogan's home, which didn't sound easy. He had to find a free weekend to sneak to Hogsmeade, otherwise it would be like groping in the dark to go to the village to find someone at night. How do I get into the kitchen? Maureen asked. There's a painting of a large silver bowl of fruit hanging in an inconspicuous corner of the corridor leading to the Hufflepuff common room. Just scratch the pair. James yawned, left the common room and went back to the dormitory. Someone complained that the cover was too ugly. How could you? Okay. I've wanted to complain for a long time, but I can't find a satisfactory cover. If anyone has a good base map, please share it with me. Period. I'll go find an artist. Chapter 56 Preparing for the competition. Maureen had planned to go to Hogsmeade as soon as possible to ask where Sir Cadogan's home was, but the next week became very busy. Even when he didn't have classes, he still had Quidditch training waiting for him. Pork seemed to be addicted to training. He always found time when they didn't have classes to train, even for substitutes. We'll play against Hufflepuff on Saturday. I hope everyone will be very serious about this game. Everyone must work hard with the new players, especially you two, James and Albus. Pork scolded James and Albus, who seemed to be half asleep, on Wednesday afternoon. The two brothers didn't seem to care much. Got it, Pork. James didn't even blush when he was criticized. If he felt ashamed, his face would have been so red when the professor was bothering him every day. It's just that the bludger hit your nose just now. It's not intentional. Albus muttered in a voice that Pork couldn't hear. As substitutes, Maureen and Lily were forced to attend training every time. Sweet attended the training this week, but every time he came out, his mental state was very bad, his face was extremely pale, and there was no blood at all. Sweet went out early and came back late every day. Maureen wanted to ask him if he had the same mark as Hugo and Jamie. After all, when Hugo disappeared last time, he also disappeared once, and maybe the same thing happened to Hugo. But Maureen could never find a chance to talk to Sweet. Every time he was about to speak, Sweet would immediately turn around and leave, ignoring Maureen. Are you still thinking about Professor Trelawney's dream talk, Maureen? Lily hit the bludger towards Maureen and asked with a smile. Maureen knew that Lily didn't believe what he said last time, so he didn't explain much. He rolled on the broom and avoided Lily's bludger. Lily, how is the fat lady's psychological counseling going? Has the password been changed? Maureen changed the subject. As long as she didn't talk about the prophecy, Lily was still easy to talk to. Professor Charles went to counsel her personally, and now she has agreed to change the password to Heartless. Lily saw that the bludger that hit Maureen had returned, so she turned around, swept the bludger away with the end of her broom, and hit Sweet. Thank God, Professor Charles is a good man. I didn't expect he was also an emotional expert. Maureen hadn't said the password for the Gryffindor common room for several days. Under the collective protest of the Gryffindor boys, Professor Charles, a gentleman who taught the Muggle Studies class, agreed to come out and provide psychological counseling for the fat lady to heal her psychological trauma. Professor Charles is handsome, easygoing, and many students like him. Lily said with a blush. Sweet swung his bat and hit the bludger towards Maureen. Maureen swung his bat and smashed the bludger to the ground. Lily, you don't like Professor Charles too, do you? Then you should go to the Muggle Studies class and see him every day. Maureen smiled. Many girls have a crush on a graceful and mature teacher. Although Professor Charles is over 40 years old, he is usually well-dressed and friendly. He knows a lot about both Muggles and wizards. It is rare to find such a knowledgeable and cultured mature male wizard. Don't talk nonsense, I just think he is a good person. Lily snorted. Although Maureen didn't learn Muggle studies very well, she still had a good impression of Professor Charles. Stop chatting, the three of you, come and replace us. The three of you will temporarily act as chasers. Pork shouted to Maureen and the others. Pork is the captain of Gryffindor and also a chaser, responsible for throwing the quaffle into the goal. The team has 3 chasers, one of whom is a 4th grade boy named Owen, who is a new teammate this year, and another chaser named Philia, who is a 7th grade girl. The 3 seekers need to cooperate with each other, pass the ball to each other, avoid the opponent's players and the runaway bludgers, and shoot the ball to score. But Pork has always been dissatisfied with the cooperation between the 3 of them, so he called Philia and Owen down to develop a new offensive plan. James, you have to protect me. If I get hit by the ball, I will tell my mother. Lily threw the quaffle to Maureen. Lily, don't be too squeamish. You see, we have 6 bludgers in training, and it is inevitable that we will miss. James said carelessly. There are only 2 bludgers in normal games, but during training, because there is no opponent, 4 more bludgers are added. A total of 6 bludgers fly around on the field, equivalent to the opponent's players. The bludgers were enchanted, flying around in the air, attacking the nearest players, trying to knock them off the broomsticks. James and Albus were the hitters, responsible for knocking the bludgers away and protecting their own players. There are 8 now. Pork is really making the training more difficult. Albus hit a bludger hard, and the bludger hit another bludger, and the 2 bludgers flew away with a bang. Think about it. If this was the opponent's player, this bludger would be enough to give him a hard time. Albus snapped his fingers, quite satisfied with his skills. Maureen and the other 2 cooperated with each other, dodging between the 8 uncontrolled bludgers and passing the ball to each other. Sweet said nothing throughout the whole process. He had a good flying skill, and the cooperation between him and Maureen was surprisingly smooth. The 8 bludgers were extremely fierce and often blocked the way. Although James and Albus were not serious, they were very skilled in playing the game. They accepted all kinds of bludgers. Except for 1 or 2 that Maureen and the other 3 needed to dodge, all other bludgers would be intercepted by them. The latest novels are first published on the 69th book bar. Go. Lily passed a quaffle to Maureen, but the quaffle was hit by a bludger and flew out. Sweet quickly dodged the bludger and rushed towards the quaffle. He kicked the quaffle to Maureen. Maureen found an angle and flicked the quaffle with the tail of his broom, and the quaffle rushed to the goal. Goalkeeper Bruno rushed towards the quaffle, but missed it, and the quaffle went straight into the ring. The three of us work well together. Maureen glanced at Sweet, who fell to the ground expressionlessly to pick up the quaffle, ignoring Maureen. It was a sunny day on Saturday, and the first Quidditch match of this semester, Gryffindor vs. Hufflepuff, would be held in the morning. All teachers and students rushed to the Quidditch field after dinner, even Slytherin and Ravenclaw. After all, this was a very important event for Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, and no one wanted to miss it. In the first game, students from other colleges also wanted to know how the new players of the Gryffindor and Hufflepuff teams were skilled. They were rivals, and after the characteristics of the players' playing styles were known, the teams of other colleges could formulate targeted tactics to deal with them next time. It's none of our business anyway, so we just cheer them on. Maureen actually wanted to sneak to Hogsmeade Village during the weekend, but considering Gryffindor's game, he had to postpone this plan until tomorrow. Chapter 57 Quidditch Match. Great, Professor Kane asked me to commentate the game. The person who used to commentate the game has graduated. Hugo ran over excitedly. Yet, maybe because you always talk in Transfiguration class, you are often used as a human teaching aid for Transfiguration by Professor Kane as punishment. Professor Kane saw that you have a talent for speaking, so he decided to give you a chance. Maureen couldn't help laughing. There is a saying, a blessing in disguise, right? Being eloquent is a necessary quality for a commentator, which means that I am the gold that Professor Kane has dug out. I also had a dream last night that I became a professional commentator for Quidditch. It happened to be the final between Wimbledon Wasps and Chudley Cannons, and the Wasps won the championship in the end, 260-30. Your father will be furious. Maureen said. Hugo's father Ron supported the Chudley Cannons. That can't be helped. Anyway, Professor Kane said he would personally supervise my commentary. He wouldn't threaten me with a spider, would he? Yesterday, because of talking in class, Professor Kane turned the pen in Hugo's hand into a spider, which scared him so much that he hugged Maureen. Maureen disliked him for a long time. Lily just came from the entrance of the hall and heard their conversation. She smiled and said, "Your dream is very real." Hugo always talks to Maureen. Why doesn't he punish Maureen? Maybe I'm the only one in the class who can turn a pen into a spoon. Maureen shrugged his shoulders. He has outstanding magical talent. Whether it is practical or theoretical assignments of Transfiguration, he has done a great job. He is the most favored student by the professor except for Muggle studies and astronomy. When such students say a few words in class, the professor usually chooses to turn a blind eye. Then you guys should do your best. I'm going to the commentary desk first. I need to familiarize myself with the player's information. Hugo hurriedly ran away with a turkey sandwich. Maureen and Lily followed the crowd to the Quidditch field. When they arrived at the locker room, Sweet was already waiting there, but he was sitting in the corner, frowning, and no one knew what he was thinking. Poker and other regular team members had already changed their clothes. James and Albus were the last to arrive, holding goat milk and honey pie in their hands, and Poker criticized them again. The first game of this semester, many people are watching. We have to come up with the first set of battle plans. Hufflepuff has always been a weak team, but since Nooster took over as the captain of Hufflepuff, they have begun to rise in the past few years. Last year, they almost beat us. Have you forgotten? Poker said loudly. We remember, you tell these three recruits. James drank the last sip of goat milk. Maureen and Lily didn't know about this, but they knew that Hufflepuff students had a low sense of presence in school. They didn't know about the situation Poker mentioned. Don't interrupt, wipe the goat milk off your mouth, James. Pork picked up his broom and continued, Ravenclaw and Slytherin are watching our team. They will definitely do everything they can to observe our players. We can't let Ravenclaw and Slytherin students see the weaknesses of our team. The first game is crucial to morale. We have to win, but we can't win with our hands and feet. Do you understand? Pork, do you mean we have to let one hand play? James asked. Yes, that's about it. Pork nodded. Albus put his left hand behind his back and turned the bat with his right hand. He said regretfully, then James and I will only have one hand, and we have to hold the bat and control the broom. It's a bit difficult. Oh, shut up, you two, You know what I mean. Pork said angrily. He was used to James and Albus's frivolous jokes. The new players in the team are Owen, a chaser, a boy, and Diana, a seeker, a girl. Diana, try not to go head-to-head with Hufflepuff's captain, Nooster. He is also a seeker, but he has more experience than you. You need to play to your strengths. You are the key to the game. Finding the snitch can end the game, so you must find the snitch as soon as possible. Nooster is a very powerful person, with superb flying skills and great flexibility. He sometimes assists the chasers in attacking, which is allowed by the rules, so this is your only chance. While he is helping his teammates, you can quickly go over and catch the snitch, but don't let him notice this, he is very fast. Poker kept talking to the new seeker Diana about what he knew about Nooster. The more Diana listened, the paler her face became. She couldn't help but feel nervous when she met a strong opponent for the first time. Especially in Poker's opinion, Hufflepuff's Nooster was very powerful, so he wanted Diana to know more about Nooster and kept telling her about his strengths. But this method would only backfire and make Diana less and less confident. Hey, Pork, you should shut up. Diana is almost afraid to play because of what you said. Give her some confidence, okay? James couldn't help but say. Pork then reacted and realized that it was Diana's first time to play. It was useless to say these things. He quickly changed his words and said, "It's okay. Don't be too stressed in the first game. Find the golden snitch well." But after Pork spitting and talking, it would be strange if Diana didn't feel stressed. The whistle sounded outside, and all the players rode on the flying broomsticks. Maureen saw Diana trembling slightly, and he couldn't help wondering if he would also be made nervous by Pork if he played in the game. James stood beside Diana, winked playfully, and said, "Hey, Diana, don't be nervous. Albus and I will protect you. I will use the bludger to deal with that Nooster, and make sure he can't touch the golden snitch. How about going to dinner together tonight?" Diana looked at James and then forced a smile. "James, now is not the time to ask girls out for dinner." Pork scolded. James pouted his lips. "You don't understand romance. The latest novels are first published on the 69th book bar." Madam Hooch had already blown the whistle outside. Poker led the team to rush out on the flying broom. The players from both sides flew around on the Quidditch field and formed a formation. All the audience cheered, the sound was deafening and lively. Maureen and Lily walked to the door of the locker room, looking at the players in the sky and the high spectator stands. Countless students were shouting loudly, and the Gryffindor and Hufflepuff students were shouting the loudest. The golden Gryffindor lion flag and the yellow Hufflepuff badger flag fluttered in the air, and the Gryffindor students used magic to blast several majestic lion shadows in the air. Those lion phantoms ran and roared above the audience, mighty and majestic. James is really not serious. He's still thinking about asking a girl out for dinner at this time. Lily was very dissatisfied with her brother's behavior. "I think James did a good job." Poker's big talk scared Diana. James's goal was to divert Diana's attention a little, so that she wouldn't be too entangled in the Nooster incident. He is very smart. Maureen felt that although James liked to stir up trouble, his emotional intelligence was not low. Would that guy think so? Lily didn't seem to believe James. Maureen didn't say anything else. His attention was quickly attracted by Hugo's voice. Although Hugo was a commentator for the first time, his voice didn't sound stage-frightened. On the contrary, he was very confident. He had already recognized who the players were. The game has begun. Poke from Gryffindor grabbed the quaffle first and passed it to Philia. Philia dribbled the ball skillfully. This 7th-year female warrior has superb dribbling skills and left the two Hufflepuff chasers far behind. She has played on the Gryffindor school team for 6 years. She is a really good girl, with pretty eyes and a straight nose. She is also of good height, about 1.75 meters. I heard that she is also a good student. I wonder if she has a girlfriend. Hugo, there is no way you and her. Focus on the game. Professor Kane shouted from the side. Professor, we have to look forward to it. Oh. What a thrilling bludger, it almost hit Philia's head. Fortunately, James reacted quickly, and James's interception was wonderful. He hit the restless bludger at the Hufflepuff goalkeeper. Hufflepuff goalkeeper Randall had to dodge the bludger, otherwise his nose would be hit, but Philia had already rushed over. What should he choose? Be the goalkeeper or dodge the bludger? He chose to dodge the bludger, which was a very wise choice. Philia shot the ball. The ball went in. Gryffindor got off to a good start and led by 10 points. Hugo's commentary resounded throughout the Quidditch field, and all Gryffindor students cheered. The Gryffindor lion above the audience also roared loudly, cheering for Gryffindor. Chapter 58, Captain of Hufflepuff. The game was in full swing. Quidditch was a sport that fascinated all wizards. Every goal scored by the players in the air would make people excited. After half an hour of the game, the score reached 150-60, with Gryffindor leading. Hufflepuff's captain, Nooster, is no longer just a seeker on the field. He has temporarily acted as a chaser. He has helped Hufflepuff score 2 goals in a row. His goal now is no longer to find the golden snitch. That's right, Hufflepuff uses a joint tactic of 4 chasers. This is a tactic often used by the Chudley Cannons, 4 against 3. The effect is very significant, but the disadvantages are also obvious. If the seeker acts as a chaser, then the Gryffindor seeker is equivalent to having no one to hinder. Wait, Gryffindor's Diana is rushing down. Did she see the golden snitch? No one knows whether Diana saw the golden snitch, but Hufflepuff Captain Nooster has already rushed out with Diana. Although he acted as a chaser the whole time, his attention was always on Diana. When Diana just made a dive, he had already passed a quaffle to his teammates and rushed in the direction of Diana. Poker was right. Nooster was indeed very powerful. His flying speed and turning skills far surpassed Diana. However, he obviously did not see the snitch. Seeing that he could not catch up, Nooster actually shouted to his teammates. His teammates threw the bat to him. He quickly hit the bludger, and the bludger immediately rushed towards Diana and hit Diana's broom. Diana spun several circles in the air. When she stabilized the flying broom, the snitch had disappeared. Oh no! Nooster's action was very dishonorable. He used the bludger to interfere with the Gryffindor seeker. It can't be said that he committed a foul. After all, the bludger was originally used to interfere with the players, but it was very dishonorable and a bit despicable. Hugo, watch your words. Professor Kane supervised from the side. Well, Nooster used the method that only a goblin would use, Hugo. Okay, the game continues. Poker got a ball. The Gryffindor students were all disappointed, and some emotional Gryffindor students even shouted that Nooster had committed a foul and should have taken a penalty kick. But in fact, this behavior was not a foul. The beater's task was to protect his own players from being hit by the bludger, and at the same time to drive the bludger to hit the opponent's players. Hugo was obviously familiar with the rules of Quidditch and did not make any mistakes in his explanation. That Nooster is a terrible opponent. He serves as a chaser, seeker and beater. He is the core of Hufflepuff. If his teammates are a little stronger, it may be difficult for us to beat them. Lily said involuntarily. Indeed, he dared to do this because he knew that a Gryffindor seeker was a newcomer and could not compare to him in all aspects. Maureen nodded. But why doesn't he just go and catch the snitch? Wouldn't it be better for him to focus on the snitch? Catching the snitch can add 150 points. Lily looked at Nooster, who was not doing his job, in confusion. Maureen obviously knew more about the rules of Quidditch than Lily. He said, the score of each Quidditch game is crucial. Quidditch games are based on a point system. The team with more points can win the Quidditch trophy. The points are converted and accumulated based on the total score of each game. In other words, the more goals a game scores, the higher the team's points. Maureen learned about the rules of school Quidditch before the game. For example, if Gryffindor scored 100 points in a game, then the team's total points will be increased by 10 points. Catching the snitch will add 15 more points. Therefore, each team must score as many points as possible to increase their team's points. After the games of the school year are over, the 4 colleges with more points will win the Quidditch trophy. Sometimes, in order to win the Quidditch trophy, it is not enough to rely on the seeker to catch the snitch in the final. You must wait until your team scores more points than the opponent to a certain extent, and then catch the snitch to get the trophy. These points need to be calculated by the captain before the game, and arrange the seeker to catch the snitch when he is ahead by a certain number of points. If it is a sure win, just catch the snitch quickly and don't worry too much. Hogwarts Quidditch points are linked to the House Cup. Scoring on the court will also give the house extra points. Therefore, Hufflepuff's seeker Nooster will focus on assisting his teammates to score points instead of focusing on catching the snitch. He must ensure that the team's points are not too far apart, and then catch the snitch to increase the total points. After all, their overall strength of Hufflepuff is relatively weak, and it is not enough to rely on him alone. Maureen and Lily were watching the game on the platform outside the lounge, but Sweet just sat quietly in the lounge and didn't come out. Maureen couldn't help but feel confused. Although they were substitutes and had no chance to play, they should at least observe the Hufflepuff's fighting style. Moreover, this was their first Quidditch game since the start of the school year, and they shouldn't miss it. Sweet, don't you come out to watch the game? It's a rare sunny day today. It's so boring sitting there, Maureen said casually. Sweet looked up at Maureen without saying a word. What a stupid guy, how can you understand your opponent sitting there? Lily also said. Sweet ignored Lily and continued to look at Maureen. Maureen had always wanted to ask if Sweet also had some marks on his back, but he felt that this was too abrupt. He was not sure whether Sweet's disappearance was also in the corridor on the 7th floor with Hugo's disappearance. Just as Maureen was about to continue watching the game, Sweet suddenly said, at 8 p.m., go to the corridor on the 7th floor. I have something to tell you. Huh? Maureen was very surprised. He thought Sweet would be silent as usual. What can't be said now? Maureen asked curiously. Sweet said bluntly, no. The latest novels are first published on the 69th book bar. Lily was also surprised that Sweet suddenly spoke. Sweet usually didn't say a word during training. She didn't expect him to talk to Maureen at this time. You guys are whispering. Do you want me to avoid it? Lily said indifferently. Sweet didn't seem to want Lily to avoid him, but just emphasized, 8 o'clock in the evening, the corridor on the 7th floor. Although Maureen felt strange, considering Sweet's recent strange behavior, maybe Sweet knew something about the student's disappearance and amnesia, so he didn't ask much. When he was about to say okay, the scene in front of him suddenly turned back quickly again. What's going on? Again. Maureen looked at the constantly changing and distorted figures and buildings around him in astonishment. Countless voices whistled past his ears. He understood that he was experiencing the flow of time again. When the scene in front of him became clear, he found himself on the way to the hall for breakfast, which was exactly an hour ago. Every time he went back to the past, there was no advance sign, and he inexplicably went back to an hour ago. This was the 5th time he went back to the past. After Maureen came to his senses, he felt a headache. Going back to the past meant that the same thing would happen again. So who's missing this time? Maureen sighed. This strange thing always bothered him. Chapter 59 Two Missing People. Maureen sat at the dining table in the hall. He felt bad because he was watching the game nervously just now. But now everything started from the beginning. It was not as interesting as he thought to experience the same thing again. Great, Professor Kane asked me to commentate the game. The person who commented on the game before graduated. Hugo ran over excitedly. Maureen grabbed Hugo and said seriously, it happened again. What happened? Hugo did not react for a while. Back to the past. Maureen looked around, trying to find something wrong, but there was nothing. Hugo looked at Maureen doubtfully. Really? You came back an hour later? Although I believe you, you have to understand that I can't see anything wrong with you in this matter. Maureen said immediately, if I answer what you said just now like this, maybe because you always talk in the transfiguration class, you are often used as a tool of transfiguration spell as punishment by Professor Kane. Professor Kane sees that you have a talent for speaking, so he decided to give you a chance to be a commentator. How will you reply to me? Hugo was about to answer, but Maureen said for him, what you want to say next is, there is a saying that goes, a blessing in disguise, and being eloquent is a necessary quality for a commentator, which means that you are the gold dug out by Professor Kane. You had a dream last night. You dreamed that you became a professional commentator of the Quidditch game, and it happened to be the final between Wimbledon Wasps and Chudley Cannons. In the end, the Wasps won the championship with a score of 260-30. Later, you will say that you want to go to the stands to familiarize yourself with the player's information, and then you will take a piece of. Maureen glanced at the dining table, picked up the turkey sandwich and handed it to Hugo. Hugo was really surprised this time, because he hadn't told Hugo about what happened in his dream. Maureen, you are amazing. You even know the score in my dream. You are right, I do want to eat a turkey sandwich for breakfast. Hugo seemed to have believed it about 70%. He looked Maureen up and down. It's hard for me to believe that I am talking to someone in the future. In this way, you can predict everything I do, and there is no suspense in the game. For example, you already know who scored the first goal, right? 2 minutes into the game, Cryfinder's Philia will score the first goal. Under the cover of James's bludger, The Hufflepuff goalkeeper chose to avoid a bludger, giving him a chance. But the game hasn't ended after an hour, and it is still going on, so I don't know who will win or lose. Maureen said. Wait a minute. Hugo patted Maureen on the shoulder, stood up, ran to the Hufflepuff table, found a Hufflepuff boy and said something, then ran back and said distressedly, Dude, I just bet 3 silver sickles with Hufflepuff's Tessie. I bet Gryffindor's Filia will score within 5 minutes. Show me that I believe in you with your actions. That's all I have. Don't let me down. You still have the mood to do this now. Maureen looked at Hugo with a smile, but Hugo had already run away with a turkey sandwich, ready to look at his player information. If he hadn't been going to comment on the game, Maureen was sure that Hugo would go around betting with people. At least going back to the past can help this guy make some extra money, which is not so bad. Maureen muttered, but he didn't have the time to bet with others. What he wanted to know most at the moment was, who was missing this time? But he reacted immediately. Wait, isn't it? Maureen stood up and scanned the entire hall. He didn't see Lily in the bustling hall. Lily should have appeared soon after Hugo came, but he still didn't see Lily. Maureen had a bad feeling in his heart. He hurriedly took Toy, who was eating at the table, and rushed to the Gryffindor locker room on the Quidditch field. Lily was not there, and Pork was cheering the players. Maureen glanced around and was surprised again. Sweet was not there. Is Lily really missing? Maureen was puzzled. Then what about Sweet? When Maureen returned to 1 hour, he happened to be face to face with Sweet. He didn't see Sweet take out the time converter or make any strange movements, and then everything started to turn around. But when Maureen came here, not only did he not see Lily, but even Sweet was missing. What happened? James and Albus came over with breakfast, and they also had goat milk and honey pies in their hands. They were criticized by Pork again. This is the first game of the semester, and many people are watching. We need to come up with a first battle plan. Hufflepuff used to be a weak team, but since Nooster took over as the captain of Hufflepuff, they have begun to rise in the past few years. They almost beat us last year. Have you forgotten? Poker said loudly. We remember, you told the 3 of them. James drank the last sip of goat's milk, and then asked in confusion, Huh? Strange, where are Lily and that blockhead? Why aren't they here? Maureen, you're not with Lily. Maureen didn't know how to explain. He couldn't just tell everyone that he came back from an hour later for no reason. The Quidditch game was coming up, and no one would be willing to spend time listening to him if he told them. Maureen shook his head. I don't know, I didn't see them. There was no point in him being anxious now. If Lily was really missing, Maureen couldn't find her back. He didn't even know where Lily went before coming to the hall. The latest novels are first published on 69 Shuba. Forget about them. Let me emphasize again the situation of the Hufflepuff team. At this time, Pork was talking to Diana about the strength of Nooster, which made Diana more and more uneasy. James stopped Pork. Everything was the same as what happened an hour ago. Outside, Madam Hooch had already blown the whistle for assembly. The players of both teams rushed out on their broomsticks. Hugo was loudly reporting the names of the players of both teams. Only Maureen was left in the lounge. Sweet must know something. Maureen pondered in his heart. Before returning to the past, Sweet asked him to wait for him in the corridor on the 7th floor at 8 o'clock tonight. Could it be that he wanted to tell him some secrets? At this time, the game had already started. Hugo's voice, amplified by magic, could be heard outside. He had just finished praising Gryffindor's chaser Filia when the professor stopped him. Professor, you have to look forward to something. Oh. What a dangerous bludger, it almost hit Filia's head. Fortunately, James reacted quickly. James' interception was really wonderful. He hit the restless bludger towards the Hufflepuff goalkeeper. I hope someone will score a goal within the first 5 minutes. This is extremely urgent. Everyone must cheer up and don't let me down. I'm sure you are looking forward to it as much as I am. Okay. Back to James' bludger. Hufflepuff's goalkeeper Randall had to dodge the bludger, otherwise he would be hit on the nose, but Filia was already rushing over. What should he choose? To guard a goal or to dodge the bludger? This choice was crucial, and it was related to some people's fortunes. He chose to dodge the bludger, which was a very wise choice. Filia threw the ball. The ball went in. Gryffindor got off to a good start and led by 10 points. Very good, it's fun to hear. Gryffindor children, cheer for the 3 silver sickles as much as you can. Hugo's voice sounded more excited than anyone else, and his commentary was a little different from what Maureen heard an hour ago, because he had just made a bet with Tessie and obviously earned 3 silver sickles. Maureen didn't have time to be happy for Hugo, nor was he in the mood to pay attention to the game anymore. While everyone was cheering, he ran quickly towards the castle. Chapter 60: The Messed Up Painting. Today is the weekend, the weather is fine, and it is the first Quidditch match of this semester. Basically all the students gathered at the Quidditch field to watch the game. The castle is empty, and there are few students. Occasionally, a few senior students did not go to watch the game because they are preparing for the wizard level exam. Maureen came to the corridor on the 7th floor. He was very familiar with this corridor. Whether it was the portraits on the wall or the armor that creaked from time to time beside the corridor, everything was the same as before, except that the place where Sir Cadogan's portrait was originally hung was empty. He went to the abandoned classroom and checked it again. The classroom was still the same as before, there was no abnormality, and there was no trace of Sweet or Lily. But Maureen always felt that something was wrong. This feeling of something wrong was very abrupt and vague. He couldn't tell what it was. He stood on the fence, looking at the stairs in the middle of the castle that rotated and shifted from time to time, thinking about what was wrong. What's wrong? Maureen looked at the portraits in the corridor again. The feeling of something wrong became stronger and stronger, as if some places were different from what he saw in his memory. Then Maureen slapped his head and he understood what was wrong. The dozen or so portraits on the corridor wall seemed to be in a different order. That's right, that's what's wrong. In Hugo's memory, the order of the portraits was not like this, and in Jamie's memory, the order of the portraits was also completely different, and now the order of the portraits has been messed up, especially the painting of the wizard playing chess. Maureen remembered that the last time he asked Sir Cadogan about Hugo's whereabouts, Sir Cadogan was enthusiastic to take Maureen to find him, and he broke into a painting of a wizard playing chess. At that time, Sir Cadogan was restless and threw the queen on the chessboard and shouted checkmate. The 2 wizards in the painting were very annoyed and yelled at Sir Cadogan behind him. At that time, the painting of the wizard playing chess was next to Sir Cadogan's painting, but now the painting could not be found. Instead, the picture of the wizard playing chess was replaced by a landscape painting of a reef hut by the sea. Has the painting of the wizard playing chess also been destroyed? Maureen felt a little uncomfortable. Although he knew that the people in the painting were not real, after all, the 2 wizards playing chess could talk. If they were destroyed, it would feel like murder. It seems that the 2 wizards playing chess in the painting, like Sir Cadogan, may have seen something, and in order to prevent them from revealing the secret, they destroyed them. Maureen tried desperately to recall the order of the portraits in Jamie and Hugo's memory, but he only remembered a vague impression. When Maureen saw Jamie and Hugo's memory, his attention was more focused on the classroom. Why would someone deliberately mess up the order of the portraits? Maureen counted in his mind. There were a total of 12 paintings hanging on the wall nearby. Most of the paintings here were fruit paintings and landscape paintings. The portraits of people were gone. Maureen observed the paintings in front of him, trying to see what was special about these paintings. Unfortunately, he was not a professional painter and did not know how to appreciate the genre of painting. If he had to say a common point, it was probably that the paintings in the castle were moving. Even the white clouds in the landscape paintings would float around, and the fruits in the tray would accidentally roll under the table. The Quidditch field outside the castle was still going on. Hugo's voice was amplified by magic and could be heard here. Gryffindor's poke made a beautiful spinning pitch. The ball was very fast. He wanted to pass it to Philia, but the ball was intercepted by Nooster. Hufflepuff began to counterattack. Their offensive formation was very beautiful. Oh, what a pity. Albus hit the bludger towards Nooster, who was forced to dodge. Hufflepuff's formation was broken. Albus's skills were really amazing. I have to say that the Potter family has a talent for playing ball. While listening to Hugo's explanation, Maureen observed the paintings on the wall, but he couldn't figure it out after looking at it for a long time. But at this moment, footsteps were heard in the corridor. Maureen turned around and found that it was Professor Charles from the Muggle Studies class. Professor Charles was still wearing a decent suit. He always looked so polite. "Hello, Professor." Maureen greeted quickly. He felt very strange. Why was Professor Charles here? Shouldn't he go to watch the game? But Professor Charles asked first. He asked with some surprise, "Maureen, aren't you going to watch the Gryffindor match?" In the first class of Muggle Studies, Maureen cast a petrification spell on Carlo. After that, in every Muggle studies class, Maureen's homework was always confused. Professor Charles obviously had an impression of Maureen. "Professor, I just came back to get something." Maureen made up an excuse. "Come to the 7th floor to get something? Shouldn't the Gryffindor lounge be on the 8th floor?" Professor Charles asked. Maureen tried to calm himself down. It was the weekend, and he didn't violate the school rules to come to the 7th floor. There was no need to worry about anything, so he said, "I was just passing by and happened to take a look at these paintings." "Professor, aren't you going to watch the game?" Professor Charles looked up at the paintings on the wall and said thoughtfully, "I'm here to see these paintings too." "You're here to see these paintings?" Maureen was surprised. Why did Professor Charles come to see these paintings? Why didn't he come at other times, but just in time for the Quidditch match? "These paintings are nice, aren't they?" Professor Charles reached out and touched the frame of a fruit painting. "Good paintings should be treasured. The paintings in Hogwarts Castle have a long history and must be well protected. The latest novels are first published on 6th book bar." "Yes, Professor." Maureen didn't understand why Professor Charles suddenly said these words. He felt a little uneasy. Did Professor Charles know something? At the same time, Hugo's voice commenting on the game rang out outside, and this time it seemed a little hurried. It was a very intense collision. The chasers of the two teams collided with each other for the quaffle. Hufflepuff's Randy stabilized his body in time, but Gryffindor's Owen fell from a height of 5 meters, which was not good. "I hope he's okay." Madam Hooch has paused the game. Madam Pomfrey has already rushed over. "The situation seems a bit bad. The score is now 200 to 160. Gryffindor is temporarily leading, but the outcome is still hard to say, because at this time if Nooster catches the golden snitch, the score will be reversed. Gryffindor students should pray. Nooster is searching for the golden snitch at this time. Gryffindor should cheer. There seemed to be a problem with the Quidditch game. The noise outside was getting louder and louder. Some cheered, some booed, and after a moment, Hugo's voice rang out again. "It seems that Gryffindor's chaser Owen can't play in the next game. But this year Gryffindor has 3 substitutes, so it's not a big deal. Gryffindor should be planning to change players." Madam Hooch signaled that the game should continue, and all the players have taken off. "Wait, why are there only 6 people in Gryffindor? Why didn't they send substitutes to play? Doesn't Pork trust the 3 first-year freshmen? This is not wise, not good." Maureen remembered that he was a substitute player. Pork didn't stop the substitutes from playing, but he couldn't find anyone. Lily and Sweep disappeared mysteriously, and he was the only candidate, but even he ran here. Pork would be crazy. "Professor, I have to go. I'm a substitute player for Gryffindor." Maureen said hurriedly. "Go. I hope you can win." "Oh, sorry, as a teacher, I can't favor any side. I wish you good luck." Professor Charles smiled. "Thanks to the book friends Ziasheng Wangau, passing by the melon crowd, Shuakasheng for the rewards, and thank you all for your recommendation votes." Chapter 61 Substitute. Along the way, Maureen felt that it was a bit strange to meet Professor Charles in the corridor on the 7th floor of the castle. He was there for a reason, so why was Professor Charles there? But there were more important things to deal with at the moment, so Maureen didn't have time to think about it. He ran out of the castle and rushed to the Quidditch field. He still regretted it a little now. If he had brought a flying broom with him, he could at least fly directly from the castle to the Quidditch field, but he put the broom in the locker room of the field. Along the way, Maureen listened to Hugo's explanation nervously. Because Gryffindor had an extra chaser, the offense had been affected, and the defense had a gap. Hufflepuff had scored 3 goals in a row. The situation is not good for Gryffindor. In just less than 5 minutes, Hufflepuff has scored 3 goals in a row, and the score has reached 200 to 190. Hufflepuff's Nooster finally stopped assisting the players in the attack and began to concentrate on finding the golden snitch. Gryffindor is now outnumbered and there are big gaps in defense. Hufflepuff took the opportunity to score another goal, 200 to 200, the score has been tied. Very good, Hufflepuff students can cheer. Having said that, if this continues, Gryffindor may be overtaken. The captain of Gryffindor looks very angry and is yelling at the players, but what I don't understand is why he doesn't send the substitutes to the field. In my opinion, although the 3 substitutes of Gryffindor are only first-year players, they are all strong. What is Poker thinking? Professor, do you want to persuade Poker not to be so stubborn? Hugo couldn't help but turn his head and say to Professor Kane, the Dean of Gryffindor. Hugo, watch your words. This is a game, fair commentary, we can't interfere. In fact, Professor Kane was also very anxious. As the head of Gryffindor, he naturally hoped that Gryffindor would win, but even he didn't know why Poker didn't send substitutes to play. However, he was here to supervise Hugo's commentary, so he had to be fair. Hugo obviously didn't know what happened to the 3 substitutes of Gryffindor. I'm afraid no one knew that the 3 substitutes in the Gryffindor lounge ran away without a single one left. The score had been tied by Hufflepuff, and the students of Gryffindor couldn't hold their temper. Even Poker showed despair on his face, because Gryffindor's new seeker and Hufflepuff's seeker Newster were not at the same level at all. Newster almost didn't take Gryffindor's new seeker Diana seriously. I am stubborn? I'm going to fuck you, you old goblin mother. Poker cursed fiercely, but no one could hear it. He felt very aggrieved. Others didn't know why the substitutes didn't play, but only he knew that he couldn't find the 3 substitutes of Gryffindor at all. Before the game started, they had hoped to retain their strength and told their teammates to hold back as much as possible and not to show all their strength. However, the performance of Hufflepuff's captain, Newster, exceeded everyone's expectations. He almost led the entire team by himself. At the beginning, he relied on the tactics of seeking and chasing the ball to catch up with the team's score. Now Gryffindor is 1 man short, and everyone can foresee that Gryffindor will experience its first disastrous defeat this school year. Change to the 3rd set of tactics. Pork almost shouted on the court. The Hufflepuff team members did not change this year, while Gryffindor had 2 more rookies this year. They only trained a few times and could not get used to each other. Now the situation is getting worse and worse, but even Pork himself knows that it is useless to change tactics if there are not enough people. But at this moment, the whole stadium suddenly cheered, especially the Gryffindor students. Everyone cheered loudly because a red shadow rushed out of the Gryffindor locker room and joined the court. That's right. Gryffindor's substitutes finally came on the field. Maybe Poker realized that the current situation was not favorable to Gryffindor, and finally decided to let the substitutes come on the field. Let's see who came on the field. Oh. The player who came on the field is the most handsome substitute in Gryffindor, Maureen Walker. Hugo, did I ask you to praise others' appearance? When Professor Kane saw Maureen appear, a relieved smile appeared on his face. The tone of scolding Hugo became less serious, and his eyes were full of hope. It seemed that he wanted to cheer with the Gryffindor students, but he remembered that he was a professor, so he held back. Sorry, Professor, I can't introduce him in other aspects except his appearance. He is a new player, and none of us knows how he will perform, right? But now Maureen comes to save the day. Gryffindor Lions, don't you think he is handsome? Hugo did not hide his excitement at all. In fact, he knew Maureen's flying skills. When they were training, Hugo would also go to watch. It can be said that he knew Maureen quite well. But he was smart and didn't tell anyone what he knew. After all, this was the secret of the Gryffindor team, and commentators shouldn't reveal other people's secrets casually. Yes, you're right. Professor Kane, who was over 50 years old, didn't seem to care about that anymore, and simply cheered with the Gryffindor students. The Hufflepuff players didn't care about Maureen's appearance, because they knew that Maureen was just a substitute player and a freshman. It had just been a short time since the start of school. What level could a freshman be? There was no threat to them. Poker was relieved when he saw Maureen, but he wasn't very excited, because during the training recently, he focused more on Owen and Diana. He didn't have high requirements from Maureen and the other 2, and they didn't cooperate much. At this time, Maureen was just a novice, and in his opinion, he couldn't replace Owen. Maureen, we are going to use the 3rd set of tactics. Let's all go for it. The first game is to boost morale, and we must not lose. Diana, hurry up and find the ball to end the game. Poker shouted. He didn't even have time to ask where Maureen had gone just now. The score was so close, and the only way to win was to rely on Diana to find the golden snitch. What is the 3rd set of tactics? Maureen shouted. Maureen replaced Owen on the court. He acted as a chaser, responsible for passing the quaffle to score. Usually, he only trained with Sweet and Lily, and basically didn't cooperate with Philia and Poker. He didn't quite remember what the 3rd set of tactics was. The 3rd set of tactics is to use the 1-3-2 tactics, specifically the batsman. Poker was about to explain in detail. But James had interrupted him, knocked a bludger close to Maureen away, and shouted, "Never mind, the third tactic is to shoot the ball into the goal and score. I understand now." Maureen focused all his attention on the field and judged the current positions of all the players. He found that the Hufflepuff players focused their defense on Pork. After all, Pork was their strongest opponent, and Hufflepuff basically didn't care where Maureen flew. This was Gryffindor's best chance. As long as Maureen could get the quaffle, he could easily catch the Hufflepuff chaser off guard. But Maureen soon found that he had no chance to touch the quaffle. It was not that his flying skills were bad, but that Pork didn't pass the ball to him. "Maureen, you don't understand the third tactic, so you are responsible for diverting their attention. Philia and I will attack." Pork didn't trust the substitute players very much. The ball was delayed in passing to Maureen. In his opinion, even Owen, who he had trained for a long time, was tied up, not to mention a first-year substitute player. The latest novel is released on the 69th book bar. In 5 minutes, Poker only passed a ball to Philia, but Philia's long shots were intercepted. Maureen was wandering around the court alone, unable to get the ball, and no one was defending him, as if he was a superfluous person. "Pass the ball. This is a good opportunity." Maureen saw the right opportunity and shouted, "No, you haven't participated in our training. It's not safe to carry the ball like this." Poker shook his head. He was now worried that after passing the quaffle to Maureen, Maureen's quaffle would be snatched away by the opponent, and it would be bad if they counterattacked. Maureen frowned. "Oh, no." Gryffindor's substitute player came on for 5 minutes and didn't touch the quaffle once. It's not that his skills are bad, but Poker kept not passing the ball to Maureen. He missed several chances. It seems Poker doesn't intend to give the newcomer a chance. Hugo, as a commentator, also saw the situation on the field and discovered Maureen's situation. He was worried about Maureen, but it was of no avail. If Poker didn't trust Maureen, no one could interfere in this matter. Nooster decided to give up the search for the Golden Snitch again and rejoin the battlefield. This player performed really well, and his flying skills are first class. Oh. He rushed and stole Gryffindor's quaffle, which is bad for Gryffindor. Nooster shook off the blockade of Gryffindor Poker and Philia, and he rushed to the goal. Gryffindor's goalkeeper was hit to the side by the bludger, and he couldn't stop Nooster. Nooster scored another perfect goal, overtaking the score. Hufflepuff Badgers, start cheering. Hugo's commentary was still very fair. Although his tone was biased towards Gryffindor, he would announce it loudly every time Hufflepuff scored a goal. "This won't work. It's the same as not playing if I play." Maureen sensed Poker's distrust. He must now fight for his own opportunities, otherwise if he continued like this, Gryffindor would definitely lose. When Philia made another long throw, the quaffle was caught by the Hufflepuff goalkeeper, and Maureen saw his chance again. He jumped up and caught the quaffle with his hands. This was the first time he had the chance to touch the quaffle since the last time. He turned to avoid the oncoming bludger, then turned upside down, straightened his broom, and rushed towards the Hufflepuff goal. "Maureen, pass it to me. You'll lose the ball if you go up like this," Poker shouted. The two Hufflepuff players had already surrounded Maureen. He always felt that it was wrong to let the freshman who didn't even know what the third set of tactics was to attack. But Maureen ignored Poker. He knew very well that in this situation, if he passed the ball back, it would only waste time. Now he was very close to the goal, and letting him attack was the most correct way. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 62, The Neglected Genius. No one noticed that when Maureen was concentrating, his eyes with different pupil colors flashed with a faint blue and green light, eliminating all interference. In Maureen's eyes, whether it was the Hufflepuff goalkeeper or the two chasers who came to block him, the flight trajectory seemed to be seen clearly in his eyes. It was a magical feeling. Maureen accidentally found that he could judge the flight direction of the Hufflepuff players. This seemed to be his instinct. He didn't even have time to think about why. His brain had already helped him calculate an excellent attack route. The Hufflepuff chaser blocked the way, and there was a Hufflepuff beater next to him who hit the bludger towards him, but he didn't change his face, even though it seemed impossible to break through. Gryffindor's new chaser finally caught a quaffle for the first time. He plans to go all out and attack on his own, but it's difficult. Hufflepuff's defense is very tight, and the bludger is hitting Maureen on the back of his head. How is Maureen going to deal with it? Is he going to give up the attack and dodge the bludger? This is the best option, because it's hard to take care of both ends. No, Maureen chose to continue attacking. God! This is an extremely difficult stero dive, a famous move of Stero, a chaser of the Atoll Hurricane team. How dare a first-year student imitate his move? This is very dangerous. If you are not careful, you will fall off the broomstick. Maureen oh my god. He did it, and he actually shook off the two Hufflepuff chasers with a stero dive. The bludger brushed past his ear. It was really dangerous. Is he going to throw the ball? Hugo looked at Maureen nervously. Not only him, but everyone focused their eyes on Maureen. This short first-year student relied on the old Nimbus 2005 to make a move that no one expected. Maureen threw the quaffle up, then turned over and kicked it. The quaffle drew a beautiful arc in the air, passed under the crotch of the Hufflepuff goalkeeper, and entered the opponent's goal steadily. The ball went in. What a surprise. A freshman from Gryffindor could actually come up with such a beautiful reverse flying ball. This kick showed grace and confidence. The substitute player Maureen helped Gryffindor score a goal as soon as he came on the court. Gryffindor tied the score. Hugo shouted excitedly. All the Gryffindor students cheered again. Maureen's performance in this goal was too eye-catching, and immediately gave Gryffindor hope. How is this possible? Poker also looked at Maureen in disbelief. According to his experience, Maureen's attack just now was impossible to succeed. Even he could only dodge it in a roundabout way and could not force it. However, Maureen showed everyone what the stero dive, one of the 10 most difficult Quidditch moves, was, which made him unable to react for a long time. Pork, if you don't trust Maureen, we will lose this game. James hit the bludger hard and hit the Hufflepuff goalkeeper, almost knocking the goalkeeper off the broom. Poker realized that he had been busy training Owen and Diana, who had just joined the team, but ignored a real Quidditch genius. I know, Maureen, no matter what tactics, you attack with all your strength, and we will make way for you. Poker shouted. It should have been done long ago. The glimmer in Maureen's eyes flashed away. He turned around and rushed towards the quaffle. Very good, the captain of Gryffindor seems to have figured it out. He and Philia began to create opportunities for their new chaser. Maureen's body movement is very fast. He bypassed Nooster, turned around and shot. The ball went in. Gryffindor's leading again. All the Gryffindor students cheered again, and even Hugo's voice amplified by magic could not cover it. The Hufflepuff players began to counterattack. Their formation was well organized. They did not panic because of losing a goal. He dodged Albius's bludger and was about to shoot the ball, but it didn't go in. It was intercepted by Gryffindor's goalkeeper Bruno. The ball was in Maureen's hands again. He dribbled the ball and attacked again. Could he score a goal? He dodged the Hufflepuff goalkeeper. Pork rushed forward. The Hufflepuff players wanted to intercept Pork, but it was useless. Maureen was the key now. He kicked the quaffle out, very beautifully. The ball went through the cylinder. Gryffindor scored. Widened the score. The Gryffindor students in the audience cheered continuously, and the lions in the Gryffindor audience seats kept making deafening roars. The game was full of twists and turns and it was amazing. The quaffle flew towards the left side of the court. Nooster rushed towards the quaffle. He was ready to attack again. Oh wait. He didn't seem to be trying to catch the quaffle. He didn't care about the quaffle at all, but continued to fly forward. The quaffle passed by him. Oh my god. He saw the snitch. Hugo's voice attracted everyone's attention. Following the direction of Nooster's flight, everyone saw an inconspicuous golden flash on the court. It was the snitch that ended the game. Nooster was only 30 meters away from the snitch, and Diana just reacted now. Gryffindor's seeker also rushed over, but it was too late. Her speed was far inferior to that of Nooster. Nooster was indeed a powerful player. He left Diana too far behind. It looks like there is no suspense in this game. Hufflepuff is going to catch the snitch. Hugo's voice sounded a little disappointed, but he was still explaining loudly. But at this moment, his voice suddenly changed, and he said with surprise, "Wait. There's a figure coming halfway. Isn't it Maureen from Gryffindor? What is he going to do? Is he going to intercept Nooster?" That's right. Just like Nooster interfered with Diana just now, we can give the other person a taste of his own medicine and use the methods of the goblins, but his collision is a foul. But no matter what, if it can prevent Hufflepuff's seeker from catching the snitch, Gryffindor must choose a tactical foul, even if it means a free throw. Two figures intertwined quickly in the air and rushed towards the golden snitch. Just when everyone thought that Maureen was going to hit Nooster to interfere with his catching the golden snitch, no one expected that Maureen actually adjusted the flying broomstick right before the collision. He held the flying broomstick tightly and spun half a head over Nooster. He was not going to hit Nooster, but, holding the golden snitch firmly and powerfully with one hand. Beep, beep. Madam Hooch blew a long and distant whistle, ending the game. All the audience were stunned. They hadn't reacted yet. How did the game end suddenly? But Maureen had already raised the golden snitch in his hand high, with a victorious smile on his face. The latest novels are first published on the 69th book bar. Oh my god. Gryffindor's substitute chaser actually caught a golden snitch. He did what the seeker was supposed to do. How did he do it? Hugo shouted out everyone's thoughts. Everyone thought that Maureen was going to commit a tactical foul when he rushed over, but they didn't expect that Maureen had no intention of committing a foul. He directly chose to compete with Nooster for the golden snitch, and he actually won the golden snitch. A chaser caught a golden snitch, which is an extremely incredible thing on the Quidditch field. Because everyone knows that finding the golden snitch is what the seeker should do, and the chaser is only responsible for scoring. Maureen's approach was completely beyond everyone's expectations. The audience even fell silent, looking at the golden snitch in Maureen's hand in disbelief. This result was full of surprises. Gryffindor, win. Madam Hooch shouted out the result of the game loudly. The audience only reacted then. Any player in a Quidditch match can switch positions with each other, just like the seeker Nooster has been acting as a chaser to help Hufflepuff attack. Gryffindor's substitute chaser Maureen also temporarily acted as a seeker and caught the golden snitch. The referee ruled that the scramble was valid, so Gryffindor won fairly. They won the game in an unexpected way. They won the final victory. The little lions of Gryffindor can roar to their heart's content. Hugo shouted excitedly while holding a big microphone. There is no rule in Quidditch that chasers cannot catch the golden snitch. Any team can win as long as they catch the golden snitch, so Maureen did not commit any foul. Gryffindor. Professor Kane, who is over 50 years old, cheered like everyone else, and he and Hugo hugged each other excitedly. Chapter 63 Celebrating Victory. Maureen. 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 From the locker room to the Gryffindor lounge, Gryffindor students were cheering Maureen's name. A freshman in Gryffindor, she was a substitute player. Unexpectedly, she showed extraordinary flying skills in the first game and defeated Hufflepuff at a critical moment. You have to know that Gryffindor has 2 new players this year, and the cooperation between the players is not skillful enough. In addition, Hufflepuff has a very outstanding seeker Nooster, which almost made Gryffindor defeated. If Maureen hadn't caught the golden snitch in time, the victory would definitely belong to Hufflepuff. Believe me, Pork will definitely not say something like reserving strength to let one hand come again. Look at what our so-called reserved strength has been beaten into today. James took out a lot of butterbeer to celebrate the victory of the game. He poured a full glass for Maureen. Maureen was surrounded by people all the way. For a moment, he seemed to be the hero of Gryffindor. As a substitute chaser, he caught the golden snitch when both seekers were present. This kind of thing has never happened on the field of Hogwarts. I was a little luckier. Maureen didn't know what to say, so he was more modest. This is not luck, this is strength. Hugo shouted, Nooster's flying broom is a Firebolt 15, and you use a Nimbus 2005. The 2 brooms are completely on the same level, but you beat him. All Gryffindor students were very excited. Poker even decided to tailor a training plan for Maureen, vowing to treat Maureen as Gryffindor's secret weapon and use it at the critical moment. His talent is no longer a secret, Poker. Forget it. The teams of other colleges will definitely develop new tactics against Maureen next time. You should protect him all day before the next game to prevent him from being sent to the hospital by the spells of other teams. Albus said. No one would be so mean, Albus. Poker replied. The Quidditch players were discussing how to use the substitutes properly. Now that substitutions were allowed, it meant that Maureen didn't have to play at the beginning, making the game more suspenseful. Everyone was cheering, but Maureen was looking for Sweet and Lily in the common room, but he didn't see them after searching for a long time. Hugo, come over and tell you something. Maureen pulled Hugo aside. What's wrong? Want some cake? James went to the kitchen to get it. Professor Kane said that my commentary today was up to standard from a Quidditch professional perspective, but it was suspected of favoring Gryffindor. Since it was my first time commentating, he didn't pursue it and planned to observe me for a few more games. There was no way letting me commentate on Gryffindor's game. There must be some selfishness. I have tried my best to be impartial. When Hufflepuff scored, didn't I let them cheer? Hugo held 2 pieces of cake in his hand and handed one to Maureen. After all, he was just an 11-year-old child, not an adult who was a professional commentator. It was quite good to be able to comment to this extent. Maureen was not in the mood to eat the cake, but said seriously, "Remember what I told you this morning about going back to the past?" "Oh, now that you mention it, I remember that Tessie still owes me 3 silver sickles." Hugo said happily, "Remember to tell me the spoilers of the next game. I want to place a big bet." Thinking too much? I can't control when I will go back to the past. Maureen and Hugo returned to the dormitory together. There were only 2 of them in the dormitory. Maureen continued, "Every time I go back to the past, someone disappears. Don't you understand?" "Oh, yes, who is the unlucky person this time?" Hugo finally realized this. After all, he was also one of the parties involved, and his expression became a little more serious. "Lily, or maybe Sweet." Maureen looked at Sweet's empty bed, and then told Hugo what happened in the Quidditch common room this morning. Hugo was surprised. "It's Lily's turn this time? But how did she disappear?" "This is the crux of the problem. I don't know either." Maureen sat on the bed and gave the cake to Doy on the bed. "Don't you know?" "But you, Sweet and Lily were all in the lounge at the beginning, weren't they?" Hugo asked. "Don't you understand yet? I was with them at the beginning, but I went back an hour ago. At that time, I hadn't met them yet. They disappeared before they met me." Maureen had no idea about this matter. Every time he went back to the past, it happened too suddenly. He only knew what he had seen, but not what he hadn't seen. "If that's the case, will Sweet still remember what he said to you? That is, to meet him in the corridor on the 7th floor at 8 o'clock in the evening?" Hugo asked. Maureen was not sure. "He did say this at the beginning, but after I went back to the past, it was the same as not seeing him. From another perspective, he didn't say this to me, so I don't know if Sweet will go to the corridor on the 7th floor to wait for me at night." Maureen thought that Sweet would not wait for him, because the current Sweet did not say this in the locker room of the stadium. Hugo thought for a moment and guessed, "Do you think it's possible that Sweet wanted to trick you to the corridor on the 7th floor and then attack you? Rather than casting magic on you or something? Come on, if he wanted to attack me, he would have plenty of opportunities every day. Think about it yourself. He leaves the dormitory every day when we are still asleep. It would be easy for him to deal with any of us at that time, including you. The latest novels are first published on 6th book bar." Hugo felt very insecure after listening to Maureen's words. He said, "You are right, but then again, this matter is not that bad." "Why do you say that?" "Because of Lily. She has never believed what we said. This time she has lost her memory. Let's see what she can still suspect." Hugo smiled and didn't seem to be very worried about Lily's disappearance. It was nothing more than the same as him, disappearing for a day or 2, and then coming back with amnesia. It wouldn't be a big deal. Maureen didn't really care whether Lily believed what he said or not. Lily had her own ideas and thoughts. Maureen didn't need to ask Lily to believe him. He didn't like to prove anything to others. This matter itself was troublesome enough. Even if Lily believed it, she might not be able to provide him with better help. "What I care more about is that I met Professor Charles in the corridor on the 7th floor today. Everyone was watching the game on the Quidditch field. Why did Professor Charles go to the corridor on the 7th floor alone?" Maureen said puzzledly. "Maybe he just went there by the way. No one stipulates that you must go to watch Quidditch games. You are not the same. By the way, although I didn't understand Professor Charles's Muggle Studies class, he is a very gentleman. If he didn't teach Muggle Studies, maybe I would like his class." Hugo commented pertinently. "That's right. It's true that no one stipulates that you must go to watch Quidditch games on weekends." Maureen nodded, but he was still confused. Why was it just the corridor on the 7th floor? Why did I meet him there by chance? Why did Professor Charles say that he was also here to see these paintings? Is it a coincidence or? Maureen took out the fragments of Sir Cadogan's portrait from his school bag and fell into deep thought. At this moment, he could not risk telling the teacher that Sir Cadogan's portrait was destroyed. He had to find out for himself. Chapter 64 Sweet. Tomorrow is Sunday. He originally planned to go to Hogsmeade to find Sir Cadogan's home, but his plan has gone wrong. It seems that you can't go to Hogsmeade now. You are already a celebrity. I bet you will be on the Hogwarts Weekly tomorrow. All students will know you. It is not wise to go to Hogsmeade, Hugo said regretfully. The Hogwarts Weekly is a student club of Hogwarts School. It is formed by some students and specializes in searching for daily news of Hogwarts School, including which students accidentally flooded the corridor with the water calling spell, or wanted to use the cutting spell to remove leg hair, but accidentally turned his legs into bow legs, etc. A series of funny news will be published in the Hogwarts Weekly. And the Gryffindor team has a brilliant new star, and I am afraid it will occupy a large section again. Maureen also realized this. He performed so well in the Quidditch match today that many people already knew him. There were many senior students in Hogsmeade on weekends, so it was easy to recognize him. First-year students should not appear in Hogsmeade. If they were found, he would be put in detention for a long time. The professor would not be lenient with him just because he was a rising star on the Quidditch field. But I have to go there to find Sir Cadogan's home. Maybe Sir Cadogan is still alive. The only key to Maureen's understanding of this matter was Sir Cadogan. He could only look for clues to this matter with the idea that Sir Cadogan was still alive. It would be great if you had an invisibility cloak or something. Of course, if you could change your appearance, things would become much simpler. Hugo said. Change your appearance. Maureen thought about this carefully. There is a kind of person who can change his appearance at will. That kind of person is called a metamorphmagus. But there is also a kind of person with superb magic who can disguise his face slightly. Do you want to try a spell? Maybe you can change your hair color to blonde, or make your eyebrows thicker, but that kind of spell is too difficult. When Fred was testing the spell, he accidentally moved his ear to his nose, and we laughed at him for a long time. Hugo recalled that incident and seemed to find it very funny. I have to try it. If I can't go to Hogsmeade this week, I have to go next week. Maureen planned to go to the library tomorrow to look for books on human camouflage magic to see if he could learn some camouflage spells. But I have to go to the corridor on the 7th floor tonight. Maybe Sweet will be waiting for me there. Before Maureen finished speaking, the door of the dormitory was pushed open with a creak, and a person walked in. Maureen and Hugo looked at each other, and the person who came back was Sweet. Sweet, where have you been? Why didn't I see you during the game? Maureen asked. Sweet looked particularly tired, with dark circles under his eyes, as if he hadn't slept for a few days. When Maureen saw Sweet for the first time in the morning, he was just pale, without dark circles under his eyes. Sweet glanced at Maureen, but didn't respond. Instead, he walked towards his bed and sat down. You look very bad, are you going to the hospital? Maureen asked with a frown. Sweet shook his head, then said in a hoarse voice, Do I have something to say to you? This question was so strange that even Maureen didn't know how to answer him. Don't you know whether you have something to say to me? Maureen wanted to say yes, but what Sweet said in the morning was before Maureen went back to the past, and after Maureen went back to the past, he didn't see Sweet, so the conversation that was supposed to happen didn't happen. I forgot. I feel like I want to say something to you, but I can't remember what to say. I can't even remember where I went this morning. Sweet rubbed his temples and looked very sleepy. Then he lay on the bed and closed his eyes. After a while, heavy snoring came from him. Hugo whispered, He is really a weirdo. Do you think this matter has anything to do with him? Maureen couldn't figure out whether Sweet was lying or not. When Sweet asked Maureen to meet him in the corridor on the 7th floor this morning, Maureen thought Sweet knew something. But now that he was back, Sweet seemed to have lost his memory. If we turn him over now, maybe he also has a Death Eater mark on his back. You can try to use those strange eyes to look at his memory. Hugo suggested. It's not a good idea to do this. We're not sure if Sweet has anything to do with this. Oh, he's back. Is Lily back too? Go find her. Maureen stood up, left the dormitory and went back to the common room. The celebration party in the common room was still going on. Many people saw Maureen and greeted him again. Maureen responded politely, but his eyes were always searching for Lily's shadow. Maybe Lily has returned to the dormitory. I'll go to her dormitory to find her. Hugo ran towards the stairs of the girls' dormitory, but as soon as he stepped on the stairs, the steps turned into a slide. Hugo screamed and fell down the slide. I forgot that boys can't go to the girls' dormitory, Hugo said, rubbing his butt with a grin. The latest novels are first published on the 6th-9th book bar. Many students in the common room saw Hugo's appearance and laughed involuntarily. James even shouted, "Hugo, you are very brave. You took the lead to tell us that the girls' steps are forbidden for boys." "Don't laugh, James. Have you seen Lily?" Hugo asked. "Yes, where is that girl Lily? I haven't seen her since the game started." "Did she oversleep?" James asked in confusion. "Lily is not on the dormitory." Gemma, who is usually very close to Lily, walked down from the girls' dormitory and said, when she was going to have breakfast in the morning, she suddenly said that she had something to do and then left. "I thought she went directly to the court." "She didn't go to the court, Gemma. Did you see which direction she went?" Maureen said. "Then I don't know, Maureen. Oh yes, you performed very well today." Gemma smiled shyly at Maureen, then blushed and walked to the corner, and started chattering with a group of girls, and secretly looked at Maureen from time to time. "I bet she likes you, Gryffindor's talented star. Maybe you will receive some love letters and tokens of love tomorrow. Let me make it clear that if it is chocolate or something, it belongs to me," Hugo said with a sly smile. "Be serious, we are going to find Lily." Since a while ago, many girls have pointed at him. When they met Maureen's eyes, they would smile very shyly and blink at Maureen. Maureen was still a little uncomfortable when dealing with this situation. Chapter 65 Student Club. "Hi, Maureen." "Hello, Maureen, you were awesome yesterday." "Maureen, what a coincidence to meet you here." On Sunday, when Maureen was walking on the road, every Gryffindor student would greet him, especially the first-year girls, who were the most diligent in greeting. During normal classes, Maureen didn't talk much to other girls except Lily. Today, there were suddenly so many girls greeting him, and he hadn't gotten used to it yet. "This feeling is really weird. Everyone is so enthusiastic about me," Maureen muttered. "You were so impressive yesterday, buddy." Hugo yawned. Lily hadn't shown up yet, and Sweet had left the dormitory before they woke up early in the morning. Maureen decided to go to the library to find books to learn magic to change his appearance. The two of them turned a corner and walked towards the stairs. Along the way, they found that the corridor on the second floor of the castle was particularly lively, with many students coming and going, discussing something lively, from all colleges. "Are they holding any activities?" Maureen asked. "Today is the club day held once a semester at Hogwarts. Many clubs are recruiting. Didn't you see the notice yesterday?" "Nelson posted the notice in the common room," Hugo said. Maureen was surrounded by many people last night and didn't see the notice. In order to enrich their extracurricular activities, students at Hogwarts will form their own clubs. They will hold a club day every semester, and each club will recruit talents to fill vacancies. "Are there any clubs worth joining?" Maureen asked. In fact, the Quidditch team of each college is equivalent to a club, and he has already joined a club. "Let's go and have a look. Anyway, it's still early," Hugo said excitedly. As soon as they turned up the stairs, the road ahead was blocked by three girls they didn't know. One of the girls with silver hair came up and said, "Hello, Maureen, my name is Madonna, and I am the president of the school's Magic Sound Club. I would like to ask if you are interested in joining our club." "Magic Sound? Sorry, what is Magic Sound?" Maureen asked, puzzled. "Magic Sound, Maureen, Magic Sound, you know, the wizard band of Hogwarts, playing beautiful music with magic," Madonna said with a smile. Maureen didn't react for a moment. Wizard band? Although he knew that there were many student clubs in the school, he never knew that there was a so-called Magic Sound band in the school. "But I can't sing. I can't play any instruments." Maureen's attainments in music were as bad as Muggle studies and astronomy. He thought it was good enough that he could speak normally, and singing was as non-scary as possible. Madonna said confidently, "It doesn't matter. Many people don't know that they have a talent for singing, and they need to dig it out by themselves. You can use magic to change your tone. In our club, anything can be used as a musical instrument." "Oh, I heard from James that you are the Magic Sound band that likes to make noise with toilet lids and flies," Hugo said in surprise. "That's musical art, not noise. Please respect our art." Madonna glared at Hugo fiercely, then said to Maureen with a smile on her face, "We are currently trying to play music with a flying broom. The club plans to hold a flying and escape concert at school. We hope you can consider joining our club. You don't need to do anything, just appear on our flyers." The club is a place that can train wizard students to develop in all aspects of morality, intelligence, physical fitness and aesthetics. It can lay a solid foundation for you to enter the wizarding society in the future. Such opportunities are rare. Do you want to try it? Maureen was not interested in music. He said politely, then I'll think about it. Okay, this is the application form for membership. I'm from Ravenclaw. Once you've thought about it, just point it with your wand and it will turn into a paper crane to come to me. We're waiting for your good news. Madonna handed Maureen a fancy flyer, and the two girls behind her suddenly waved their wands, pointed at their throats, and sang soprano in unison, wait for good news, wait for good news, good news. Sound. The bright, sharp and terrible tune was like nails scratching on a blackboard, making Maureen shiver involuntarily and get goosebumps all over the floor. Are they serious? Maureen waited until Madonna and the other two left before asking in a low voice, why do I feel like their tone can even scare away Dementors? They don't even need the Patronus charm. Hugo laughed, haha. Yes, maybe they can go to Azkaban to break out of prison, or go to Azkaban to guard the prisoners instead of the Dementors after graduation. If they sing a song every day, those prisoners will feel happier and more desperate than being sucked away by Dementors. How can flies and toilet lids be used as musical instruments? Maureen flipped the application form over and over again and found that it listed a lot of strange things. They were all magic instruments developed by the magic band themselves, such as the sound of blackboard erasers hitting the blackboard, the sound of chalk heads exploding, the sound of slippers slapping cockroaches. I heard from James that magic is used to amplify the sound of flies flying, and the flies are controlled to hit the toilet lid to make the sound. Different intensities or different numbers of hits will produce different tones, right? I don't know, but I sympathize with those flies. Hugo shook his head. Then are they serious about this mandrake crying duet? Last time I read in a book that the crying of a mature mandrake can kill people, and even the crying of a young mandrake can make people unconscious for a long time. Are they going to hold a murder concert? The latest novels are first released on the 6th-9th book bar. Maureen couldn't help but sigh that this club was really bold. They even dared to use the sound of mandrake as an instrument. They really played music with their lives. Don't worry about it. They just want to rely on you to increase the reputation of the band. After all, you are a big celebrity in the school now. If you join their club, it will definitely bring a wave of popularity to their club. Hugo said disdainfully. Maureen and the others continued to move forward, and then met a boy with freckles on his nose. He claimed to be a member of the school's Cultivating Sentiment Poetry Society and came to invite Maureen to join. Reciting poems can cultivate our sentiments and make us more confident in what we say and do. If you join our club, we can teach you how to use voice-changing spells to imitate the voices of various famous wizards, and even the voices of animals. Just imagine. You can recite the 13 lines of Mirador's witch poems with the voice of a phoenix. What a wonderful experience. Although Maureen didn't know what the 13 lines of Mirador's witch poems were, after listening to the introduction of the third-year boy, he felt that the so-called Cultivating Sentiments Poetry Club sounded good. The voice-changing spell can change one's voice, but without technical guidance, it is difficult to imitate the voices of other animals. The third-year boy was from Gryffindor, and he also wanted Maureen to join his club to increase the influence of the club. In order to show that he had mastered the voice-changing spell very well, the boy personally recited a passage from Mirador's witch poem in the voice of a unicorn to Maureen. Your eyes are like black gems in a stinking ditch, sparkling with extraordinary brilliance in the filth. Your nose is like an undigested nail in dragon dung, standing tall stubbornly in the erosion. Maureen was pulled away by Hugo before he could finish listening to the 13 lines of the witch poem. He really didn't understand what this inexplicable poem was about. In addition, the so-called unicorn voice of the boy sounded like a toad to him. Chapter 66 Students Club. The corridor on the second floor was very long. Every time Maureen walked a distance, a bunch of people would surround him and try to recruit him to join. After all, celebrities have a strong appeal to the masses, especially Maureen, a freshman. If he joined a club, more people would come to join. There were probably no less than 30 student clubs in total, such as the Wizard Chess Club. Two thin boys were shouting and handing out flyers. There was a chessboard on the table in front of them. The chess pieces were like alive. Every time a horse took a step, it would neigh to the sky, and its hooves would tread on the chessboard. The knight on horseback would wave his spear and shout slogans of attack. This reminded Maureen of Circa Duggan again. Maureen even received a club flyer about magic beauty. This club was composed of girls and specialized in teaching girls how to use magic to make up themselves. Maureen originally wanted to say that he was a boy and did not meet the club requirements, but a strong girl who was nearly 1.9 meters tall stuffed the flyer into Maureen's hand. "Take it. This club makes an exception for you," the strong girl said in a muffled voice. Maureen swallowed his saliva, compared the height difference between him and her, and then looked at the strong muscles on her arms and the big wand in her hand, which was as thick as Maureen's wrist. He felt that it would not be a wise choice to refuse. "Thank you, I will consider it," Maureen said cautiously. He suspected that this girl had troll blood, otherwise how could she grow so tall, especially that incredible big wand? Did Mr. Ollivander tailor it for her? In addition to these clubs that Maureen did not want to get involved in, there were some clubs that he was relatively interested in, such as the Wizard Bermuda Club, which specializes in studying the unsolved mysteries of the wizarding world and exploring various advanced magic. It is said that the wizarding world has a special research institute for wizarding oddities in the Bermuda Triangle. They set up their office on a small island in the Bermuda Triangle. As for the disappearance of planes and ships in the Bermuda Triangle, or the amnesia of people returning from the Bermuda Triangle, they are responsible for it. They cast a forgetfulness spell on Muggles and use magic to protect the area. The signals of planes and ships would be interfered by magic and accidentally crashed. Our goal is to expose the darkness to the sun. A black-skinned boy wearing glasses handed Maureen a Wizard Bermuda leaflet and said confidently, "If you want to know why botricles lay an odd number of eggs each time, why turkeys and dragons lay square eggs, and why 1/3 of goblins change sex when the sun, moon and earth are at an angle of 42 degrees, then join our club and you will get the correct answer." These strange things in the wizarding world are quite attractive to Maureen. Maybe Maureen will consider joining this club. He accepted the leaflet. Then Maureen saw a Magic Painting Legend Club in front of him. This club is composed of a group of students who like painting. They can use their brushes to create all kinds of lifelike scenes. In the wizarding world, the things drawn are indeed lifelike, because many things in the paintings can move, and people and animals that cannot move are rare. Maureen saw a black-haired senior boy sitting by the wall, sketching a Ravenclaw eagle on the easel in front of him. His painting skills are undoubtedly very good. The whole body of the Ravenclaw eagle has been painted, and only the wings have not been finished. But an unfinished eagle does not mean that it will not move. The eagle looked very irritable, twisting its claws restlessly, wanting to soar on the drawing paper, but unfortunately its wings were not painted completely, so it could only be restricted to this spot, and it kept turning its head to see if its wings were finished. After about 2 minutes, the boy finally finished drawing the wings of the eagle. After he finished the last stroke, the eagle, which was originally trapped and struggling in place, flew around on the drawing paper and made a sharp and powerful scream. It's amazing. The students who watched the boy's painting were amazed, especially the freshmen who were born in Muggles, who applauded. Usually, everyone is used to seeing people and animals walking around in paintings, but few people know how masters create them, so when this boy was painting, he attracted a lot of attention. There are skills to drawing animals. It is difficult to keep the animals still in the drawing. If you don't want them to move around while drawing, you can draw the head last, so that they will stay there obediently throughout the whole process. Remember, when drawing an animal that can fly, don't draw the wings first, otherwise it will fly around on the drawing paper and be very restless. This is the same as not drawing the legs of an animal that can run first. The boy who was drawing casually explained some key points to pay attention to when drawing. Another girl next to him distributed a large club flyer to the students watching, and said loudly, "When you go back, draw your best painting, sign your name, and click it with a magic wand. The flyer will turn into an owl and come to us. We will assess whether you have a talent for painting based on your painting level." Maureen himself didn't know if he had a talent for painting, but the man also enthusiastically handed him a flyer, so he couldn't refuse. A moment later, Hugo caught up with him from behind. "Where have you been?" Maureen asked. "I'm going to learn about the Wizard Chess Club. I really like playing wizard chess. My dad taught me." Hugo held a flyer for the Wizard Chess Club in his hand, ready to fill in his name and information after returning, and then turned the flyer into a paper crane to sign up. "By the way, this is for you." Hugo handed a pink letter to Maureen. "What is this?" Maureen took the letter, which was painted with a bunch of beautiful roses and mistletoe. "Just now a girl from Ravenclaw asked me to pass it to you. She said her name was something like Bella. I forgot her name. Hugo then smiled maliciously and said, it should be a love letter. You have a suitor. Maureen opened the pink envelope, and suddenly several love magic bubbles floated up from the letter paper and flew around Maureen. Maureen, ever since you deliberately touched my body in the spells class in September, I understood your feelings. I know you have a crush on me. Now what I want to say is that I am willing to be with you. Wait, what does this mean? When did I touch her body? I don't even know who she is. The latest novel is first published on the 69th book bar. Maureen read the contents of the letter with a confused look on her face. Oh, it seems that you are deliberately flirting with others. I can't tell. Hugo said with a smirk. Forget it, this person is called Barbara. I have no impression of her at all. Maureen searched his mind and didn't remember talking to a Ravenclaw girl named Barbara. I guess you accidentally bumped into a girl when get out of class was over. You are so successful on the court and in love, cherish them. Hugo glanced at the letter, shuddered after reading the content, and said disdainfully, what corny words. This love letter stationery was bought at Weasley's Trickster, and there is a trademark underneath. No wonder it is so fancy and sings. These bubbles are so annoying. Maureen stretched out his hand to block those magic bubbles of love. There was a girl's head in each magic bubble. He put the letter back into the envelope and prepared to find a place where no one was around to dispose of it. Hugo was laughing, but suddenly his laughter stopped. He quickly grabbed Maureen and said, oh my god. Don't go any further. A group was created, 125,287,626. Everyone is welcome to join the group. Chapter 67, House Elf Rights Association. What's wrong? Maureen asked. He soon found out why Hugo didn't want to ask and walked forward. Hugo. Where are you going? I asked you to come to help at 7 o'clock in the morning. Why are you here now? Rose's voice sounded in front, and when Maureen reacted, Rose had already stopped the two of them. Hi, Rose. Maureen greeted, and looking at the pile of flyers in Rose's hand, he had an ominous premonition. Molin, you are here too, just in time. I think Hugo must have promoted our club to you? Hugo is also a member of the club. Rose said seriously. I'm not. Hugo argued angrily. Sorry, what club? Maureen looked at Hugo. Hugo rolled his eyes. He didn't want Maureen to ask this question. House Elves Rights Promotion Association. Our club fights for the interests of House Elves. Hugo, as a member of the club, you don't come to help me. I will tell my mother when I go back. Rose stuffed a large stack of flyers to Hugo without saying anything. Maureen suddenly remembered what James had said that day about the House Elf Association founded by Hugo's mother, Hermione. He had never thought that Rose had actually set up a student club at school. Where's your badge? As a member of the club, you must wear it when you are carrying out activities. Rose pointed to the badge of the house elf holding a gold galleon on her chest. I don't know where I threw it away. Hugo muttered. You're lucky. Rose took out a bunch of badges from her pocket, stuffed one of them into Hugo's pocket, and said, I still have it here. If you throw it away on purpose again, I won't forgive you. Hugo was very annoyed by his sister's behavior. He took the badge reluctantly. What about you, Maureen? You must be interested in our club too? Our club was founded to promote the reform of wizard society. This is much more meaningful than other childish clubs. What do you think? Rose's tone seemed very proud. Maureen thought it would be better not to argue with Rose about this issue. He took a leaflet from Hugo and said confidently, You're right, Rose. I'll go back and take a closer look and maybe consider it. Rose was very satisfied with Maureen's attitude. She turned to Hugo and said, Go and distribute the leaflets quickly. Don't come back until you've distributed them all. Only ghosts would like this club. After Rose left, Hugo said angrily, She's the only one in the whole club, and she's so proud of it. It's useless, isn't it? But don't you still have it? Maureen couldn't help laughing. I was forced to do it. You see, James and Albus were also forced to join the club, but did they help? Rose can't control them, they just come to trouble me. Hugo walked forward with the leaflet in his arms. Rose kept staring at Hugo at the club's exhibition booth. Hugo could only casually stuff the leaflet into the hands of the students passing by. Take it, throw it away if you don't like it. Hugo said to Toby who was passing by. His tone didn't sound like a flyer distributor at all. Hugo, have you joined the student club? What does this club do? Toby was very interested in the flyer Hugo brought over. In fact, as a Muggle, He was interested in many clubs. The student clubs at Hogwarts were not like the simple interview and exchange activities in Muggle schools. The clubs here were all based on magic. Even the magic sound band that Maureen found creepy was at least very creative. The music they made with magic was much richer than that of Muggles. House elves, Toby, if you think house elves should not work for us for free, you can come to this club. Rose will welcome you. Hugo said stiffly. What are house elves? I haven't heard of this. Toby asked curiously. Go over there and find out. I can't explain it clearly, but Rose will be happy to answer it. Just say that I am the recommender, and your chances of joining the club will increase by 80%. Hugo pointed at Rose, who was sitting alone behind the table, and said, Really? That's great. Toby took the flyer in Hugo's hand and walked towards Rose with great interest. Rose looked particularly excited. Are you luring ignorant freshmen? Maureen looked at Toby with some sympathy. Once you enter the tiger's den, it's hard to get out. Hugo said nonchalantly, This is my duty. I recommended people there. Whether they can stay depends on Rose. If she can't convince them, it's not my fault. I said that there is an 80% chance of joining the club, which is still a conservative statement. I am sure that anyone who is interested in this club will be recruited by Rose. From the current situation, there are almost no people interested in Rose's club. Toby is the first one. The latest novels are first published on the 69th book bar. Maureen soon heard Rose saying something to Toby in a serious manner. Can you bear to let a group of elves who work hard to wash clothes and cook for us go without any pay? Think about it, if you graduate and start working, but you don't get paid, would you be happy? This is the current situation of house elves. Maureen felt that Rose's words were still very convincing from the perspective of Muggles, and labor and pay were linked, but from the perspective of wizards, house elves were born brainwashed, and they were not happy even if you wanted to help them. If you want to liberate the house elves, you must at least convince the house elves first, and it is useless to convince wizards. Even if wizards are willing to give house elves freedom and pay them wages, the house elves will fall into panic next, and liberation must start from the mind. Toby was born a Muggle, and he seemed to be convinced by Rose. He quickly signed the leaflet and agreed to join the group. Rose also gave Hugo a thumbs up from a distance. Then why don't you sign up and join the club, so that Rose won't bother me next time? Hugo gave Maureen a sly smile and handed the flyer to Maureen. Maureen shook his head quickly. He should not get involved in the muddy water casually. If the house elves in Hogwarts were freed, he would have to wash his clothes by himself in the future. It was troublesome to think about it. I support house elves working for wages from the bottom of my heart, really, but house elves are ashamed of being paid, and we can't do anything about it. If they protest against someone paying them and go on strike, we will be miserable. Maureen said. Yes, that's it. Hugo agreed with Maureen's words. Every time students change their dirty clothes, they just throw them on the chair. Late at night, the house elves will come to collect them, wash them, and use magic to spin dry them before putting them back. Everyone has become accustomed to the dirty clothes that are changed at night being clean and tidy the next day, and they don't want this to change. Hugo handed out flyers very quickly. When he saw a student, he stuffed them in his mouth, saying I don't like throwing away. He didn't explain the meaning of this club in detail, and quickly handed out the flyers. They didn't walk far before they found that the corridor in front of them was blocked by people and there was a long queue. What surprised Maureen the most was that he saw a huge poster of himself riding a flying broomstick pasted on the wall. On the poster, James and Albus were flying on both sides of Maureen, and they both looked very proud. Chapter 68 Disguise Hat. The huge poster read, Freakin' Odd Club, endorsed by Gryffindor Quidditch star Maureen. Do you want to experience a different and extraordinary adventure? Do you want to make some extra money to fill your pockets? Come and join us. The photo on this poster was probably taken by someone with a wizard camera during the Quidditch match yesterday. It was a color version. Maureen's photo looked retouched and full of confidence. Hey, look, our Quidditch star is coming. One of the three giants of the Freakin' Odd Club. James ran from the crowd with a smile, pulled Maureen to the front without saying anything, and the crowd immediately burst into warm applause. What is the Freakin' Odd Club? Maureen looked confused. He didn't even know when he became the spokesperson for the Potter brothers. We are two clubs that have just been established this year. By the way, we use your poster to recruit people. You don't mind, right? James laughed. Whatever. Maureen didn't mind. James and Albus were both pretty good. Although she had become the spokesperson for a so-called weird society without knowing why, it sounded quite interesting. We want to start a business and open a store like Weasley's hobby shop. We have Uncle George's technical support, but some inventions require experimenters, so we need some people to help. Albus explained. In fact, your reputation is enough, isn't it? The word Potter is well known to everyone and has such a strong appeal. I think your business has always been good. Maureen said. That's true, but having you join is even better. We've just started and we have to make a name for ourselves. We never miss any opportunity to expand the club. James said with a beaming face, and then asked in a low voice, how about joining us? You don't need to participate in our experiments. We will give you a copy of our inventions for free in the future. How about that? Sure. Maureen thought that there was no harm anyway. He also liked those funny magic things. It would be nice to join James and Albus's club. Great. Albus snapped his fingers. The future of the weird club is bright. Haha. Hugo squeezed in excitedly and said, I'll join too. James glanced at Hugo and said seriously, the quality of our club members is very high. You have to accept our assessment. I can help you distribute flyers. Okay, you're hired. James stuffed a large stack of flyers to Hugo. By the way, where's Lily? I thought she would go to help Rose. Isn't she with you? Albus looked around, looking for his sister. Maureen said, Lily didn't come back yesterday. I told you she was missing. Don't be ridiculous. She just sneaked out of school to play. She often does this kind of thing. She won't disappear even if everyone else disappears. James was very relieved about Lily. Maureen didn't know how to explain. He remembered the purpose of his going to Hogsmeade Village, and asked in a low voice, James, do you have something that can change my image or make me invisible? Anyway, make sure no one can recognize me. James shrugged his shoulders. Do you understand the difficulties of being a celebrity? When I first entered school, because of the last name Potter, I was surrounded by all the students in the school for a whole semester. When I went to the toilet, someone asked me for an autograph. Can you imagine the feeling of a girl rushing into the men's toilet and stuffing me a love letter? As the son of the famous Harry Potter, James is still a celebrity in the school, and his appeal has never diminished. Don't be so conceited, James. You've been in detention longer than anyone else. Are people still giving you love letters? Albus interrupted, and then asked Maureen, what are you going to do? I need to do something. I don't want a group of people following me wherever I go. Maureen spread his hands. Come with me. James took Maureen to the History of Magic classroom on the second floor. After seeing that there was no one around, he took out a magic folding box, took out a black wizard hat, and said mysteriously, this disguise hat is not on sale yet, so I'll lend it to you. It's a thing made by Teddy. Wearing it can slightly change your face shape. Who is Teddy? Maureen took the pointed wizard hat and looked it over and over again. You may not know Teddy Lupin, but he is a natural-born discusemagus, a gifted Auror. He and I invented it together. I am considering its commercial value, specifically for those of us who are restless. It is not as good as the Polyjuice potion, which can change into anyone you want, but it can also change your appearance temporarily, which is very good. James explained. Maureen smiled knowingly when she heard the word restless, and felt that it was too difficult to be a good and obedient child. It sounds good. I think many wizards will need it. You can try to mass-produce it. Maureen praised. James shook his head. The disguise hat has a disadvantage. The magic is invalid in the mirror, so you will never know what you have become, but others can see your true face in the mirror, so you have to stay away from glass mirrors and water and other things that can reflect your appearance. I am still improving it. I will show you. The latest novels are first published on the 69th book bar. James put on the disguise hat, and his whole face was stretched out. His nose seemed to be flattened, and his eyes almost bulged out, which made him look completely different from the original James. You look better without it. Maureen couldn't help laughing. Maureen could accept this shortcoming. He originally planned to go to the library to learn some disguise magic. Now it seems that this hat will save a lot of trouble. This disguise hat is still in the experimental stage. It can't make you handsome, but only ugly. James took off the disguise hat and handed it to Maureen. Maureen immediately put on the wizard hat and asked, how do I look? James touched his chin and looked around. He raised his eyebrows and said, my nose is a little flat, my face is a little big, and it's so-so. My eyebrows are faded. I'm quite ugly. I have to ask Teddy how to beautify my face. I heard that Muggle phones can automatically beautify photos, unlike ours. The poster of the three of us outside was modified by me using magic. Ugliness is not the point. I'll leave first and contact you later. Maureen left the history of magic classroom and walked through the crowd. The people who had been pointing fingers at him really didn't pay attention to him this time. Even when he walked to Hugo, Hugo handed him the flyer seriously and said, "Come on, learn about the Weird Club." Cryfinder's rising star Maureen has teamed up with the Potter brothers to launch the Super Adventure Club, where you can experience all kinds of novel and interesting magic jokes. Students who join the club can get a 30% discount on their next purchase of quick-acting skipping candy. Maureen smiled slightly. Even Hugo didn't recognize him, which was very telling. He took the flyer and didn't tell Hugo that he was leaving. He hurried to the basement. He remembered that James said the kitchen was in an inconspicuous corner of the corridor leading to Hufflepuff. He followed a Hufflepuff student, turned the marble staircase in the hall, and saw a door. After opening the door, he walked down a stone staircase and came to a stone corridor. There were bright lights on the walls on both sides. He walked down the stairs and observed the walls around him. There were also many pleasant paintings hanging on the walls here, mainly about food. Maureen searched for a long time before he saw a painting of a huge silver bowl full of fruit in the corner. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 69 House Elves. Maureen tickled a pear in the fruit painting, and the pear snickered and then turned into a large green doorknob. What an interesting magic. Maureen has always been interested in the paintings of Hogwarts, and this magical painting looks particularly different. He turned the doorknob, opened a crack, and went in. This was a room with a high ceiling, just like the Great Hall. There were many glittering copper pots and basins piled up against the stone walls around them. These were the table where they usually used for meals. There was also a huge fireplace opposite, and 4 long wooden tables in the middle, facing the long tables of the 4 colleges above the hall. "Good morning, sir." A house elf came over and bowed, and then many house elves around him poked their heads out from under the table and looked at Maureen in awe. "Hello." Maureen looked at the house elves. These little guys had big green eyes like ping-pong balls, noses as long as pencils, ears like bats, and long fingers and feet. Each house elf was wrapped in a tea towel with the Hogwarts emblem printed on it. "My name is Lulu, sir. May I help you with anything? Tea or drinks?" asked the house elf named Lulu. Maureen had no prejudice against house elves. His grandfather Alton had always wanted a house elf to help him massage his back, but there was no house elf in their family. Maureen lowered his voice and whispered, "I want to leave the school. There's a passage here, right?" "Yes, sir. It's right there at the fireplace." Lulu pointed to the huge fireplace opposite and said that it was against school rules for students to leave the school without permission, but Lulu didn't even ask Maureen why he wanted to leave the school. House elves would not ask about things they shouldn't know, they only knew how to obey. "Flue powder? I thought the school's fireplace was not connected to the outside." Maureen asked curiously. "Hogwarts is a very safe castle. In order to prevent someone from using flue powder to break in, the school's fireplace should be closed. It's not that they are not connected, sir. The fireplaces in the school are all supervised. Anyone who wants to come in must register. Wizards cannot come in and out at will. Of course, it may be possible to show a face in the fireworks, but not the whole person. But I'm not asking you to use the flue powder, but the mind tunnel, sir." Lulu bent down and led more into the fireplace. The flames in the fireplace were blazing. The flames were golden and exuded a warmth that warmed his body. Mind tunnel. Maureen looked at the fireplace and didn't understand what a mind tunnel was. "Yes, mind tunnel, sir." Lulu snapped his fingers at the blazing fire in the fireplace. The warm flames gradually shrank and disappeared. He walked into the fireplace and knocked on the slightly blackened bricks. The bricks began to rotate to both sides one by one, forming a long passage. The passage was very dark and no one knew where it led to. There seemed to be some light in the distance, flickering. "This is the way to leave the school, sir," Lulu said. "What is this mind tunnel used for?" Maureen asked curiously. Lulu fumbled behind the wall, pulled out a rope, and shook it gently. A minecart clanged out from the end of the darkness. The minecart was covered with dust, some coal slag, and rotten leaves that had not been cleaned up. The goblins built it to facilitate our house elves to leave the school to purchase food. We can use it to transport food, such as bringing back the big pumpkin. Lulu answered respectfully. Maureen walked into the fireplace. The hearth of the fireplace was taller than him. He said curiously, I remember that your elves' magic is very strange. Can you send everything back by snapping your fingers? Why do you need to build a mine tunnel? It's better to be prepared, sir. You are right. We don't use this mine tunnel often. If you find it troublesome, I can take you there directly. However, our house elves here have to register when they apprehend and leave the school, which is not good for you. Lulu said very honestly. Another house elf very considerately brought a small stool for Maureen to step on and climb into the minecart. There are 2 seats in the minecar, but there is no joystick, no lights, and it emits a strange smell. Sir, do you want me to wipe the minecar for you? Lulu asked enthusiastically after taking off the tea towel. No, thank you, Lulu. Can I not tell others about my leaving school? Maureen asked in a low voice. Lulu said happily, You're welcome, sir. We will keep it a secret for you. We didn't see anything. Thank you. How to start it? Before Maureen finished speaking, Lulu had already pulled a rope next to him, and the minecar flew out with a swish. The latest novels are first published in the 69th book bar. Have a nice trip, sir. Remember to open the door quickly twice. Lulu's voice quickly disappeared behind. What door? Maureen shouted loudly, but he could no longer see Lulu. The minecart was moving very fast. Maureen could only feel his school uniform wearing and his disguise hat almost being blown away by the wind. He quickly took off the disguise hat and stuffed it into his arms. The mine tunnel was surrounded by stone walls. Every few meters, there were dim mining lamps flashing by. These mining lamps were all ignited with eternal flames and could burn forever. Maureen kept moving forward in the darkness. He couldn't figure out how fast the minecart was. This reminded him of the dizzying speeding minecart when he went to Gringotts last time. The minecart made by the goblins seemed to always have only one speed. After moving forward for about 20 minutes, the minecart suddenly stopped. The rapid brakes almost made Maureen fly out. Fortunately, he pulled out his wand in time and shouted slow down and slow down. The deceleration spell was applied to him, allowing him to stabilize his body in time. This passage is really dangerous, but fortunately magic can be cast here. Maureen couldn't help but mutter and jumped off the minecart. Hogsmeade Village is a village that the school allows to visit, so it is no problem for students to cast some magic here on weekends. In front of the minecar was a stone staircase leading upwards, and no one knew where it led. Maureen walked up the stone staircase, and there were kerosene lamps on the walls on both sides of the stone staircase. The walls were rough, and some places were leaking water, making a dripping sound. He walked up the stone staircase, and in front of him was a shabby wooden door. Maureen looked at the shabby wooden door in front of him, which had some holes on it and was broken. He pulled the wooden door, but when the door was opened, he saw a wall, and there was no exit at all, as if someone had sealed the exit with a wall. Chapter 70 Wizard Farm. Lulu just said that the door needs to be opened twice quickly. Maureen took a step back and closed the wooden door again. He opened it and quickly closed it again. This time, Maureen was surprised to find that there was no longer a wall in front of him. He came to a small utility room, surrounded by farm tools such as shovels and sickles, covered with spider webs, and it looked like it had not been used for a long time. Dust fell all over the floor, and it creaked when stepped on. It felt like it was about to fall apart. There were a few footprints on the floor, which were messy. Maureen estimated that these footprints were left by James. He turned around and looked at the door he had just entered. When he opened it again, it was still a wall. What a magical entrance! It was the first time that Maureen had seen a door that needed to be opened twice quickly to show the exit. If it was only opened once, he could only see a cold wall. If you don't know the secret, I'm afraid no one can find the entrance to this passage. He put on his disguise cap, carefully walked around the farm tools, opened another door in the utility room, and was surprised to find himself in a grove. The place he came out of looked more like an abandoned farm hut, with weeds growing in front of the house. He walked along the grove for about 10 meters, and there was a farm in front of him. The crops grown on the farm amazed even Maureen, who was born in a wizard family. Not far from him was a pumpkin field. The pumpkins here were all cast with an expansion spell, and each one was taller than Maureen. There was a huge, uncontrolled watering can in the pumpkin field, 2 meters high, floating in the air and watering each pumpkin vine one by one. The water it sprayed was very strong, but the ground of the pumpkin field was still dry, as if all the water had been absorbed by the pumpkin vines. The water in the watering can seemed to never run out. When watering, there were 2 shovels in the field, which automatically loosened the soil for the pumpkin vines. The pumpkin vines would move, and sometimes they would stretch out their vines to try to grab the shovels, but the shovels were very flexible, always dodging and shoveling the soil at the right time, fighting wits and courage with the pumpkin vines in a very spiritual way. Both the shovel and the watering can were cast with magic, and no human was needed to operate them. There was a row of fruit trees with red leaves growing next to the pumpkin field. What surprised Maureen was that half of these red leaf fruit trees grew red apples, and the other half grew dark green avocados. 2 different fruits actually grew on the same tree. Herbalism is really a profound subject. Maureen couldn't help but sigh. Whether it was apples or avocados, they were all wrapped in a layer of transparent magic foam, as if it was a magic cast to prevent birds from stealing them. There is a scarecrow in ragged clothes guarding each tree. These scarecrows are not like the Muggle scarecrows that just stand there stupidly. They can move. They are waving sickles and jumping between branches to drive away the red sparrows and black crows that want to attack the magic bubble. Next to the farm is a livestock farm. There is a group of strange pheasants in the livestock farm. They have purple feathers and are fat all over. Some pheasants can even spit out flames when they look up and crow. In the distance, 2 wizards are holding wands to select these purple pheasants, and they are still muttering. Maureen vaguely heard the witch in the apron complaining, "Raising dragon blood hybrid pheasants is really a losing business. The meat is too greasy, and it spits fire from time to time. It is too aggressive. Restaurants dislike it and will not raise it anymore." The witch skillfully waved her wand. When a purple pheasant was trapped in the air by the wand, it desperately waved its wings to break free. The witch just flicked her wand, and the purple pheasant's hair fell off involuntarily, turning it into a plump hairless chicken. After the hairless chicken was plucked, it was still alive and kicking, and it was spewing fire from its mouth to attack the witch, but the witch's wand sprayed a stream of frost, which directly froze the hairless chicken, and then threw it into a small cart and continued to pick other pheasants. If Maureen hadn't come here to find Sir Cadogan, he would have wanted to experience the life of a wizard farm, which must be very interesting. "Excuse me, have you heard of Sir Cadogan?" Maureen walked over and asked politely. "Cadogan, who?" The witch's apron was dirty and her clothes were patched. She stopped and looked at Maureen, frowning. "Sir Cadogan, Mom," Maureen repeated. The witch wiped her wand on her apron, thought for a moment, and said, "Are you talking about the Mad Knight from Hogwarts School? You know him?" Maureen was surprised. She didn't expect that the first person she met after sneaking out of school would know Sir Cadogan. The witch said impatiently, "Of course I know him. That crazy guy was a guard for Gryffindor when I was in school. He changed the passwords all day long and locked me out twice. How could I not remember him?" Maureen realized that he had misunderstood. Then he remembered that most of the wizards around here graduated from Hogwarts when they were young. It was normal for them to know the Mad Knight from Hogwarts School. But this was not the answer he wanted. Maureen continued to ask, "I heard that Sir Cadogan was a hero of Hogsmeade. You live here. Have you heard of Sir Cadogan or where his home is?" The witch laughed. "Are you kidding? Sir Cadogan is the hero of Hogsmeade? I grew up here and I have never heard of that madman being a hero. You haven't heard of him?" Maureen was a little disappointed. The farm witch waved her wand and caught a dragon blood hybrid pheasant. She said, "Okay, leave here quickly and don't affect my work. The farm is not a place for students. The latest novels are first published on 6-9 books. Then I won't bother you." Maureen walked along the farm path towards the nearby Hogsmeade village. After about 5 minutes, he stepped onto the slate-paved road in Hogsmeade. It was morning, and people were coming and going in Hogsmeade. There were not only wizards, but also many students chatting and laughing in groups. Maureen wore a disguise hat and changed his appearance. Other students did not recognize him. There were many wizards in strange costumes along the way, so it was no big deal for Maureen to wear a disguise hat. But he still tried to keep a low profile and avoid glass windows and other places, because the disguise hat had a big flaw. Others could see Maureen's true face from some reflections in mirrors and other places. He passed by a dirty bar with a pig's head hanging above the bar. He did not go in, but stopped beside a slug statue on the street and began to think about how to find Sir Cadogan's home. Sir Cadogan must have happened a long time ago, probably hundreds of years ago. I don't know how many people remember him now. This was the most troublesome thing for Maureen. Although he sneaked into Hogsmeade Village, he was still blind and had no clue about Sir Cadogan. He thought he should ask someone a little older, maybe those old people might know. Chapter 71 Hogsmeade. Maureen walked aimlessly on the street. There were all kinds of magical shops on the street. Although not as complete as Diagon Alley, there were also many wizards. There was also a row of specially built fireplaces on the street. From time to time, green flames would light up in the fireplaces, and then some wizards would come out, and some wizards would line up and disappear in the flames of the fireplaces. He also saw a luxuriously decorated Weasley magic joke shop in front of him, which was similar to Weasley's Trickster in Diagon Alley. Maureen remembered what Hugo said. This Weasley joke shop should be managed by Hugo's father Ron. It was the weekend, and there must be a lot of students watching in the store. It would be better for him not to go in. Next to it was a colorful candy shop. Maureen passed by several senior students who were discussing nightmare candy. One of the sturdy boys was holding a bag of black candy, and the classmates next to him were urging him to eat it. I heard that if you eat one of the candies, you will meet Voldemort in your dream. This is not a pleasant experience. The boy looked a little repulsive and didn't like this so-called nightmare candy. But you can find a way to defeat him in your dream. Don't be scared, you said yesterday that this kind of candy is nothing. Eat it quickly and prove to everyone that you are brave. Another black boy shouted. Maureen heard James talk about the product Nightmare Candy, which is a new product launched by Honeydukes Candy Store. They used to sell Dream Candy, but the sales volume reached a bottleneck, so they suddenly came up with the idea of inventing Nightmare Candy. I thought that Nightmare Candy would be ignored, but I didn't expect that once it was launched, it was greatly welcomed by many wizards with strong curiosity. Many wizards are eager to try and want to challenge the terrible nightmare. This is a thrilling adventure and is also very popular among students. The boy who was booed reluctantly took out a black candy, stuffed it into his mouth, and then sat on the chair. He soon fell asleep, but within 2 minutes, the boy suddenly closed his eyes and screamed in fear, holding the chair tightly with his hands. He seemed to be frightened by the nightmare, and the classmates around him laughed. Maureen was very curious about what his nightmare was, whether he really dreamed about Voldemort, or was he being chased by a werewolf or something. The boy had been frightened awake and was gasping for breath. After a long while, he said in shock, "It was a Dementor, it gave me a kiss." "Oh, your first kiss was given to a Dementor, haha. Shut up, I hope you try it." Maureen continued to walk forward. Next to him was a store selling all kinds of exotic vegetables. In addition to some overly large potatoes and persimmons, he also saw a bunch of round snakeskin taro locked in a cage, jumping and bumping against each other, trying to escape from the cage, but struggling was useless. An old witch bargained loudly with the shopkeeper, and finally agreed on a price. The shopkeeper took out his wand, waved it, cut the highest jumping snakeskin taro in half, and put it into the old witch's crocodile handbag. Then Maureen passed by a broom shop. He remembered that he was already a member of the Gryffindor school team. He was thinking about whether to write a letter to tell his grandfather Alton about this. Maybe his grandfather would buy him a latest model of Nimbus if he was happy. In the window, he saw the latest model of flying broom, the Swift Eagle, which was said to be more advanced than the Firebolt 15. The whole appearance was bright red like a flame, and the tail of the broom was made into a leaping flame shape, which was extremely cool. There was also a colorful poster next to the window, with a photo of Luca, the seeker of the Atoll Hurricane team, riding the Swift Eagle. From the poster, Luca looked like a ball of running flames when flying in the air, leaving only a vague shadow. Only when Luca stopped could everyone see that he was a person. "It's so expensive, 1,000 gold galleons." Maureen shook his head. He had less than 19 galleons in his pocket. This was the pocket money his grandfather gave him. In fact, he didn't need to buy anything for school. The top flying broom like the Swift Eagle could only be envisioned, and it was unlikely to spend money to buy it. Maureen retracted his attention and looked around. On a bench under a camphor tree sat a very old man. The wrinkles on his face were like twisted gullies. He had a short white beard and held a dragonwood cane in his hand. The leaves of the camphor tree above his hut fell down and floated around him. The camphor leaves automatically arranged in front of him into the shape of a light unicorn. He waved his hand, and the camphor leaves formed a door with a door handle. Cool. Maureen looked at the camphor leaves that kept changing in amazement. The old man didn't even use a wand when casting magic. He just waved with skinny old hands. It is very difficult to cast magic without a wand because magic is difficult to control. Before Maureen went to school, he could cast magic on some muggles without a wand, but those magics were unintentional. This old man seemed to be quite proficient in controlling magic. Maureen walked over and asked politely, "Hello, old man, can I ask you something?" The old man raised his head and winked at Maureen playfully, then waved his hand, and the camphor leaves actually gathered together to form Maureen's appearance. That's amazing. Maureen looked at himself made of camphor leaves in amazement. Whether it was hide or clothes, they were exactly the same as him, just like his shadow. The old man's transformation technique was quite superb. He turned his eyes away from the leaves and said, "Old man, have you heard of circulate? The latest novels are first published on the 69th book bar." "What? Cafe notice?" The Pardiff Cafe did post a notice yesterday saying that it would be closed for 10 days. "Did you see that notice?" The old man tilted his head and pointed his ear at Maureen. He seemed to be a little hard of hearing and spoke very loudly. Maureen raised his voice with a smile. "It's not the cafe notice, it's circulate, a knight in the painting. I heard that he used to be a great hero in Hogsmeade Village, and everyone called him circulate." "Oh. Are you asking, is Callaghan nearsighted?" "Callaghan is my old friend. He has been dead for many years. He is not nearsighted, but he has glaucoma. Do you know him too?" the old man said loudly again. Maureen opened his mouth wide, wondering why it was so difficult to communicate with an old man with hearing loss. But he still patiently raised his voice again, and said word by word, "I'm sorry that your friend passed away, but what I want to ask is circulate." "Oh." The old man nodded with sudden realization. "Grilled bacon cheese? Do you want to eat grilled bacon cheese? I have it at home, you can come with me if you want to eat it." Maureen rubbed his forehead, having a slight headache. Chapter 72, Failed Apparition. Maureen didn't know how to explain, so he simply pulled out his wand from his pocket. The tip of the wand sprayed a golden line, writing circulate's name in the air, then tapped the words with the wand to turn them to face the old man, and said loudly, "Old sir, it's circulate. Have you heard of this man?" If he had the same skillful transfiguration as the old man in front of him, he would definitely use the wand to make the camphor tree leaves turn into circulate's appearance, which might be a better explanation. But before the old man could answer, there was a sudden explosion in the air, as if something was crushed and exploded, and then a figure suddenly squeezed out of the air and hit Maureen, knocking Maureen out. Maureen was caught off guard by the collision. He didn't know what happened. He just felt that his bones were about to be broken apart, and his body flew towards the camphor tree. But when his body was flying in the air, the camphor leaves formed a big hand and firmly grasped his waist. A red-nosed man appeared from thin air and fell to the place where Maureen had just stood. He was now getting up in a panic. The old man with hearing loss stretched out his cane and hit the red-nosed wizard, who suddenly appeared on the head hard, and shouted, "Hey, Big Nose, who told you to apparate directly to Hogsmeade? Don't you know that you can't apparate casually in Hogsmeade? Don't you know that you bumped into someone?" The wizard, who was high on the head, said with horror on his face, "What? Is this Hogsmeade? I'm done. I'm taking the apparate test, and the location I drew should be the toilet at the London train station." The red-nosed wizard didn't care about anything else, and quickly turned around to make up for his test. The air made another huge explosion sound, sizzle. Wow! Maureen, who had just come to his senses, took a breath and looked at the red-nosed wizard in front of him in surprise. When the red-nosed wizard apparated this time, he only took his lower body with him. His upper body was fixed in place, and his 2 legs were gone. A person lost 2 legs alive. "Ah, I'm going to die, I'm going to die." The red-nosed wizard screamed in horror. His apparition failed and his body was separated. This kind of thing is very common for rookies who have just learned apparition, but it is the first time for Maureen to see it. He looked at the red-nosed wizard with interest. In such a situation, the Ministry of Magic's accidental reversal team needs to deal with it. Maureen had heard about it from his grandfather Alton before. The old man next to him raised his cane again and hit the red-nosed wizard's head hard. "What are you shouting? You can't die. Are you so afraid of death? Young people are just impatient." But the red-nosed man still couldn't stop shouting. No one would calm down when encountering such a thing. The fact that the body was separated was too horrifying. Chirping red-haired sparrow, how impatient. The old man stretched out his hand impatiently and fumbled in the air for a few times, then pulled it suddenly. With a slight puff sound, the lower half of the red-nosed wizard was pulled back from the air. He raised his cane and knocked it roughly, and the lower half and upper half of the red-nosed wizard were finally connected. The red-nosed wizard looked terrified, his face as white as the wall. After his body came back, he breathed a long sigh of relief. Thank you. Thank you, sir. He wiped the sweat from his forehead. The experience of apparition and splitting was not a fun thing. He took a step involuntarily, but stumbled and fell to the ground. It's the wrong way. Sir, you put my lower half on the wrong way. The red-nosed wizard stood up and looked at his feet. His face looked even more flustered. Maureen couldn't help laughing out loud. This scene was too weird. The red-nosed wizard's lower body should have pointed forward, but now his toes were pointed backward. When he took a step just now, his center of gravity was unstable and he fell badly. Oh. Sorry, presbyopia, I forgot to wear glasses. The old man slowly took out his reading glasses from his pocket and put them on. He raised his cane and knocked the red-nosed wizard's lower body, turning his lower body back. After doing all this, he also blinked at Maureen, who was laughing non-stop. The red-nosed wizard repeatedly confirmed that there were no parts missing from his body, especially a certain place, and he touched it more to confirm that it was correct, and then his face relaxed. Thank you, thank you. Although he was hit on the head by the old man's cane for no reason, he didn't dare to complain at all. After thanking him, he hurried to the fireplace on the street. It seems that the red-nosed man is going to use the normal way of flu powder to go back, and he doesn't expect to pass the apparition test. Don't apparate until you are sure. The old man sat back on the bench, put his cane aside, and waved his hand again, and the big hand formed by Maureen's camphor leaves dispersed, and Maureen fell to the ground. Thank you, old sir. Maureen picked up his wand from the ground and said, You're welcome. The old man waved his hand. Maureen looked at the old man in surprise. Old sir, you are not hard of hearing? You can hear what I am saying, right? The latest novels are first published on the 69th book bar. The old man was stunned for a moment, then turned his head and pointed his ear towards Maureen, and said loudly, What did you say? I can't hear you. Maureen looked at the old man with a smile. Old man, don't pretend. When you were talking to the wizard just now, you didn't look like a hard-of-hearing person. The old man smiled like an old naughty boy. I'm old and have nothing to do, so I pretend to be confused occasionally to relieve my boredom. So you deliberately put his legs the wrong way just now? Maureen said with sudden realization. The old man blinked his eyes playfully. His eyes were blue. Even though he was already in his 80s, his eyes were not cloudy like those of an old man. On the contrary, they were very clean, just like the blue sky, filled with a spirit of youth that refused to accept old age. I think it must be very interesting to see him walking backwards, maybe like a crab. The old man laughed, moved to the side, waved to Maureen, patted the chair, and said, Sit down, restless young man. Maureen hesitated for a moment, thinking that the old man should have no ill intentions, so he sat on the chair and asked, So, sir, I just asked you. Young man, shouldn't you introduce yourself before asking others questions? This is basic courtesy. The old man said casually and called the leaves on the ground over again, making them form the appearance of the red-nosed wizard just now, and also installed the two legs of the red-nosed wizard upside down so that it could walk. See, I said he looked like a crab when he walked backwards. The old man seemed very satisfied with his masterpiece. Maureen hesitated for a moment. He was a first-year student and was not supposed to be in Hogsmeade on weekends. When he was about to make up a name, the old man seemed to see through Maureen's thoughts. He turned his head and winked at Maureen kindly and said, I want to hear your real name. Don't worry, I won't tell anyone. It's normal for children to do something restless. Maureen opened his mouth and finally said honestly, Maureen Walker, sir, you can call me Maureen. Oh, everyone calls me Arnok. The old man stretched and asked, What do you want to ask Sir Cadogan? Chapter 73 Arnold. Maureen thought for a moment and said, I want to know about Sir Cadogan's past. He is a knight in the portrait of Hogwarts School. I heard that he used to be a hero of Hogsmeade Village, but he disappeared in Hogwarts School, so I want to find him and see if there is a portrait of him in Hogsmeade Village. He disappeared in school. Why didn't you tell the teacher? Arnold stretched out his hand and tapped the leaves of the camphor tree, and those leaves fluttered around the two of them. Maureen said hesitantly, because some things can't be explained clearly. Huh? Little brat, do you have some secrets that you can't tell? Arnold's blue eyes stared at Maureen. Maureen only saw a hint of cunning in Arnold's blue eyes. When Arnold said the word secret, he immediately thought of the secret of his return to the past. Arnold quickly looked away and said casually, "It doesn't matter. I'm not interested in your secrets. But the circulate you're looking for has long been forgotten. Most young people don't mention him anymore." Maureen was surprised and said, "But you know, right?" Arnold nodded proudly, "I've heard of it. I also know where his home is." "Really? Where is it?" Maureen asked impatiently. "Look, there's a lonely shrieking shack outside Hogsmeade Village. That's his home." Arnold pointed in a direction. Screaming Shack. Maureen remembered that the secret passage under the Whomping Willow that James mentioned led to Shrieking Shack, but ordinary people couldn't get through. He had never seen the haunted house. "Thank you, old sir. I'll go take a look." Maureen turned and left. Hey! Hey! Stop, stop! Arnold shouted from behind, "You believe what I said?" casually. Maureen was surprised. "Isn't circulate's home there?" "Young people are so naive. Did your school teachers teach you not to trust strangers casually? Aren't you afraid that I am a dark wizard and will trick you somewhere and capture you to make potions?" The leaves of the camphor tree in front of Arnold formed a hideous skull, grinning at Maureen. Maureen looked at Arnold and said honestly, "I don't think you are. Dark wizards will not help people with phantom clones to recover." Arnold snorted slightly. "The school is right not to let you leave the school casually. If you were sitting with me just now, I could have used legilimency to explore your memory without anyone noticing. It's not a smart thing to sit so close to a stranger and look him in the eye." Maureen's heart skipped a beat. He was shocked when he heard this. He realized that he was indeed inexperienced and made a big mistake in the wizarding world. He was a freshman who had just entered school not long ago. If he really met a dark wizard, I'm afraid he would lose all his secrets. "You peeked into my memory." Maureen took a step back vigilantly. Arnold looked at Maureen with a half-smile. Maybe he saw it, maybe he didn't. "Guess it yourself." Maureen quickly calmed down and said, "I have nothing to worry about after seeing my secret. I am just an ordinary student, nothing special." "Oh, really? Then don't you want to know why the stars you see are different from others in astronomy class?" Arnold said with interest. Maureen's face changed. "Did you really use legilimency on me?" Arnold said leisurely, "It depends on the situation. Sometimes you don't have to use legilimency. Just looking at your eyes of different colors will tell what secrets you have." "My eyes? Are you saying that I can't see the stars in astronomy class because of my eyes?" Maureen asked anxiously. He was troubled by this question for a long time. Astronomy class was a disaster for him. He never understood why such a weird thing happened. "Do you believe what I said?" Arnold asked with a weird smile. Maureen frowned, and then he realized that he seemed to be led by the nose by the old man in front of him. Arnold spoke very skillfully, and almost used ambiguous words to make Maureen admit some facts on his own initiative. He lowered his head and pondered for a moment, and said politely, "Maybe I believe it, maybe I don't. It depends on the situation." "Oh? Then when will you believe it?" Arnold asked. "When you believe that I believe you, I will believe it, right?" Maureen simply sat down next to Arnold again and said frankly, "You learn quite quickly, and it seems that you are not a stupid child." Arnold was still playing with the camphor leaves, making them into various shapes. Maureen did not speak, just watched him perform magic. After 10 minutes, Arnold seemed to be unable to help it. "Little brat, don't you ask me what's wrong with your eyes? Why is it related to astronomical dislocation? The color is different, that's it." Maureen said casually. "Don't expect me to tell you if you don't ask me." Arnold emphasized. "The latest novels are first published on 69shushu.com. "Yes." Maureen nodded, still looking at the changing camphor leaves with great interest. Arnold was choked by Maureen's words and looked a little annoyed. He stared and didn't say anything, continuing to concentrate on playing with his magic. "How did you achieve this transfiguration? How did you make the camphor leaves so flexible? I didn't even see you use a magic wand." Maureen changed the subject and asked curiously. Arnold said leisurely, "The wand only helps the magic and the wizard find an outlet, just like the water in the water pipe needs to come out of the faucet. If your body is the water pipe and the magic in your body is the water, Then the wand is the faucet, which can be turned on and off. But the water pipe can also leak. A wizard is not a wizard without a wand. Think about it, some people would burn down their houses when they were angry when they were young. How do you know I burned down the house? Maureen asked again in surprise. Arnok smiled mysteriously. What do you think? You really peeked into my memory. Young man, you still have a lot to learn. Arnok said with a deep face. Maureen nodded, looking annoyed. You are such a great wizard. With such superb magical insights as yours, I guess you must have been very famous when you were young, and you should have had a very loud nickname, just like the former headmaster Dumbledore, right? Oh, Dumbledore. He's an amazing man, you are right, but no one has called me for a long time. Arnold suddenly stopped talking and stared at Maureen. Little bastard, are you trying to trick me? No. Maureen said innocently. Arnold came to his senses and said with gritted teeth, you didn't burn the house when you were a child. You were just deliberately tricking me just now, right? Not necessarily, maybe you did, maybe you didn't. Let me think about it. You may be right, or you may not. Maureen touched his chin and said in the tone that Arnold used to trick him just now. Chapter 74 Transfiguration. Maureen was sure that Arnok had not spied on his memory, but the old man in front of him must have known the relationship between heterochromatic eyes and astronomical dislocation, so he said those words that seemed to have spied on Maureen's memory. Arnok stared at Maureen for a while, then laughed heartily. Not bad, you learn quickly, you know how to show weakness to get information from me, clever kid. I'm just good at learning. Maureen took out his wand and wanted to try to see if he could use the levitation spell to make the leaves move, but the effect was not so obvious. The leaves he controlled were far less flexible than Arnok's. It's a pity that I can't learn this. Can you teach me? Maureen was very interested in transfiguration. That depends on your talent. Arnok stretched out his hand and said, give me the wand. Maureen handed over the wand. Arnok played with Maureen's wand and said, the wand is a wizard's tool. You gave it to me so easily? What will you do if I suddenly attack you? Maureen spread his hands. I feel that I can't beat you even with the wand. You are such a superb wizard. You can kill me with your hands tied, right? There is no need to guard against this. I still want to learn some magic. You are quite good at talking. Arnok waved Maureen's wand, and the leaves flying around suddenly spun rapidly. Each leaf automatically overlapped to form a pavilion, covering their heads. The reason why wizards rely on wands is because wands can better help wizards control the magic in their bodies. The magic cast by wands is more concentrated and more powerful. I just said that the human body is like a water pipe, but water does not necessarily come out of a faucet. You can also use a shower head. So there are various ways to cast magic. Don't limit yourself to a small range. Arnold turned Maureen's wand and continued, the Dumbledore you mentioned is a very skilled expert in transfiguration. If you have seen him cast spells, you will find that the spells he casts are faster and more powerful than anyone else. Often, before the opponent has finished casting a spell, he can already cast several transfigurations to knock the opponent to the ground. Maureen was amazed. He was in awe of Dumbledore, the extremely famous headmaster of Hogwarts. After all, he was known as the person Voldemort feared the most, and he once defeated the powerful dark wizard Grindelwald in Europe. There were few wizards who had not heard of such a brilliant person. Then why is this? It's all about the wand, isn't it? Why is Dumbledore so much more powerful than the others? Most of the wizard duels that Maureen imagined were you casting a spell, and I casting a spell to cancel it out. If you cast a spell faster, I can only dodge and then continue to cast spells. It was a competition of who could cast spells faster, but he couldn't figure out how a person could cast different transfigurations at the same time to fight. That's the problem. He doesn't cast spells with one hand, but with both hands at the same time, or with his whole body. He has mastered magic to the point of being able to do whatever he wants. Magic can emerge from his whole body, and he can cast spells even without a wand. The wand just makes him more powerful. Arnok held Maureen's wand in his right hand, and a flame spurted out from the tip of the wand, while a chill appeared out of thin air in his left hand. The flame and the chill entangled with each other and collided in front of him. Wow. Cool. Maureen's eyes widened. He couldn't perform two different magics at the same time, so you are the same as Headmaster Dumbledore. Don't try to trick me anymore. I'll tell you when I'm happy. Arnok continued unhappily, this requires trying. You have to know what magic represents in a wizard's body. It's hard for me to explain these because magic itself is a very mysterious thing. Wizards have been studying its essence from ancient times to the present, but no one has really mastered all magic. You want to learn from me to control all the leaves without a wand, but it's not possible at the moment. You will understand in the future that the truly arbitrary advanced transfiguration is not recited one spell at a time. Arnok returned the wand to Maureen and asked, "What is the basic theorem of transfiguration that you taught in your transfiguration class?" "Well, use magic to balance the common points between the transformed object and the transformed target. I remember it like this," Maureen said quickly. "So what were you thinking when you were transforming? Did you perform magic based on the theory?" Maureen thought for a moment and continued, "I just wanted to try to turn one thing into another. Theory and practice are always very different." Maureen gently tapped a leaf in front of him and turned it into a snowflake. "The theory is correct, but transfiguration will be more effective if it is not bound by theory." Arnok snapped his fingers, and all the leaves around him turned into dense snowflakes, flying in the air. The two of them seemed to be sitting in the snow, as if autumn had disappeared and winter had arrived. "Great!" Maureen looked at the snowflakes in the sky with envy. This kind of transfiguration was much more powerful than his pitiful transformation into a snowflake. "Go back and think carefully about what I said. Maybe you will understand how to perform transfiguration more smoothly. Try it more. I'm not asking you to get rid of the wand. The wand is necessary, but if you want to become a more advanced wizard, you have to learn to perform transfiguration with both hands at the same time. You will find that many wizards are not only good at spells, but also good at transfiguration. They often fight not by a spell, but by using transfiguration to confuse the audience, and then look for an opportunity to use a spell to win." Arnold stood up and stretched. He picked up his cane and knocked on the ground. All the snowflakes turned back into leaves, and some leaves flew back to the treetops. "Okay, I'm going back. Mr. Arnold, the matter of Circa Duggan. Oh, him. Come over at this time next week, and I'll talk to you about him again. Maybe I can teach you some magic when I'm happy. Remember, arrive at 10 o'clock, not too early. I have something to do and I have to go home. By the way, don't trust strangers easily. If a stranger tells you his name is Arnold, maybe he is lying to you. The latest novels are first published on 69 Shuba." Arnok walked slowly towards the distant street. Maureen opened his mouth and shouted from behind, "If your name is not Arnok, then what is your name?" "I didn't say my name is not Arnok." Arnok laughed and said, "Also, you are good looking. Don't wear a silly hat and make your face look like a pile of cow dung stepped on by a dog's paw." Maureen touched the disguise hat on his head. It turned out that the magic of this hat had been seen through by this mysterious old wizard. He shrugged his shoulders and didn't care much about it. When he thought about his heterochromatic eyes, he realized that he hadn't asked many questions clearly. He thought that Arnok's mysterious tone would definitely tell Maureen about heterochromatic eyes and the astrological map, but Maureen was attracted by Arnok's transformation for a while and found that he had forgotten about it. "Hey, wait. There's something else you didn't explain clearly." Maureen chased after him, but when he reached the corner, he found that Arnok's figure had disappeared. "Who is he?" Maureen was puzzled. This old man didn't seem to be simple. From the way he cast magic, it seemed that ordinary wizards couldn't compare. But would his luck be so good? Would he just meet a powerful wizard who was hiding his true power on the street? Chapter 75, The One Who Cannot Be Predicted. Maureen was certainly not lucky, and sometimes luck cannot explain some things very well. In the bright and tidy little house, the warm sunlight sprinkled on the floor through the window. A white cat curled up its tail and took a nap on the sofa. There were 2 thick magic books on the sofa, and 2 comfortable pillows, one blue and one green. Arnok walked in slowly and sat on the chair beside the table. "Have you seen the child?" Opposite Arnok was an old woman with gray hair. Her hair was tied into a bun and combed meticulously. She looked gentle and smiled at Arnok, and her left hand gently stroked a crystal ball on the table. A cloud of smoke filled the crystal ball, and the smoke seemed to be eager to condense into the shape of a person, but it always dispersed at the critical moment. The rest of the smoke could clearly see a lush camphor tree. There was a bench under the camphor tree, which was where Maureen and Arnok were just now. "I saw it, a restless and clever ghost." Arnok stretched out his hand to touch the crystal ball, and the crystal ball floated up and avoided Arnok's hand. "Don't touch my crystal ball. It won't work if you do. I've told you so many times." The old woman pretended to be angry. Her eyes were green, like a vast forest. Even though they were covered with wrinkles, her eyes, like Arnok's blue eyes, sparkled with a spirit of not wanting to grow old. Stingy old witch. Arnok withdrew his hand with a dull look and waved to the cat on the sofa. The cat jumped into his arms. He has one blue eye and one green eye, right? What does he look like? The old woman ignored Arnok's complaints. Did your omniscient crystal ball tell you everything? Arnok pouted and scratched the cat's black ears. The cat was all white except for its black ears. It raised its head and meowed twice in a comfortable manner. Old man, don't act like a child. You know, there are some special people whose future cannot be seen. No one can predict them, not even me and Cassandra in the past. The old woman turned her head and looked at a portrait on the wall. The portrait was framed in an old brown frame. It showed a handsome young man with a confident smile and blinked at the old woman. The young man's eyes were also one blue and one green, while Arnold's eyes were blue and the old woman's were green. It was as if the young man had one eye from Arnold and one from the old woman respectively. The old woman retracted her gaze and said, I can see the camphor tree in Hogsmeade Village, which is the maximum. Then you can't wake me up from the bed at 5 in the morning and wait for him under the tree. Can't your crystal ball be more specific? For example, he will come at 10:23 in the morning? I've been playing with leaves all morning out of boredom. Arnold said with a glare. No, this child is very special. I can't see the exact time. I can only predict it through other things. This is my limit. It's better to go early and wait for him. What if he really passes by the tree at 5 in the morning? Old woman, he is a student. What is he doing there by sneaking out of school at 5 in the morning? Oh, really? Who ran there at 4 in the morning when he was young? Okay, you win, let's not talk about it. The smoke in the crystal ball was still spinning slowly, forming a camphor tree and a bench, and even the eaves of the flying broom shop behind the camphor tree could be seen. But the smoke just couldn't form the shape of a person. Every time it was about to take shape, it would immediately disperse. Maureen asked some wizards in Hogsmeade Village and found that no one had heard of Sir Cadogan being the hero who saved the village. Instead, they knew about the crazy night in Hogwarts Castle, which made him very depressed. I can only wait until next week to find that Arnold. Maureen ran back to the farm helplessly, found the abandoned hut, opened a door inside twice quickly, and rushed to the school through the minecart. He learned his lesson this time and held the minecart tightly. When the minecart stopped suddenly, he was not thrown out again. This is really a dangerous passage. Maureen climbed down the minecart, but it was pitch black all around, as if the fireplace was blocked. When he was about to knock on the fireplace and call the elves to open the door, the fireplace had already split to both sides, and the warm light from the kitchen shone in. Sir? Lulu stood by the fireplace enthusiastically. Thank you, Lulu. Maureen breathed a sigh of relief and walked out of the fireplace. After he left the fireplace, the raging fire started burning again in the fireplace. You're welcome, sir. Lunch is about to start. Do you want to eat downstairs? Lulu pointed to the 4 long tables in the kitchen. There was a sumptuous lunch on the long tables, piles of barbecue and taro, and a fragrant aroma came to his nose. Maureen looked at the 4 long tables of the colleges in amazement. He was afraid that in a while, these dishes would be transported to the hall above. No, I have to go back. Thank you for your help, Lulu. Maureen hurriedly walked towards the kitchen door. You are too polite, sir. You don't have to thank the house elf. Oh, by the way, we haven't seen you. Lulu shouted from behind. What should we do if such a cute little nanny is liberated? The latest novels are first published on the 69th book bar. Maureen waved to Lulu, feeling deeply moved. He agreed that the elves should be paid, but he could not change this situation at present. He could only leave the kitchen quickly and walk along the stone corridor in the original direction. It was time for dinner. Many Hufflepuff students also came out of their common room and walked along the stone corridor to the hall. Maureen mixed in with the Hufflepuff students, walked to an empty bathroom, took off the disguise hat, put it in his pocket, and prepared to return it to James later. Then he rushed to the hall and found Hugo. Then he suddenly found that Lily was there too. Hey, did you really go to the library this morning? Why did you suddenly disappear? Hugo had gone to James's club with Maureen in the morning. He volunteered to help distribute flyers, but when he wanted to find Maureen, Maureen was gone. Let's talk about this later. By the way, Lily, are you okay? Maureen sat down next to Lily and asked with concern. At this time, Their dining table was already filled with various sumptuous lunches. Obviously, the house elves had brought a lunch. Lily didn't look very energetic, just like when Hugo came back. I don't know. Lily shook her head. She just came back not long ago. I met her in the corridor. She also forgot where she went yesterday. After Hugo explained to Maureen, he said to Lily mysteriously, "Lily, now you know what we said is right, right? You should believe it about 70% about the prophecy that Maureen heard." Lily raised her head, stared at Hugo, and snorted, "Maybe I just accidentally hit my head somewhere and temporarily lost my memory. It has nothing to do with you. As for what Maureen said about Professor Trelawney making a prophecy for you, I advise you not to think about it. You are not special." Lily didn't seem to have an appetite. After saying this, she stood up and left the restaurant, probably going back to the dormitory. Hugo looked at Lily's back and muttered, "She is so stubborn. She still doesn't believe that Professor Trelawney will predict you. Everything happened to her, right?" Maureen shook her head and said, "Professor Trelawney didn't predict me. The prophecy didn't mention me, but mentioned you guys who inexplicably lost your memory. She should have predicted you in front of me." End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.